Ah, good afternoon, good evening, and good day, and thank you to everybody who watched the premiere of the Yoke video. That was pretty fun to do. I wanted them to be back to back. In fact, I even scheduled them to be back to back. But then, for premiere videos, you can only do them on the quarters of the hour. So if I did it when YouTube changed the time to, it would have overlapped with the start of this. So I pushed it forward. That way, there was no overlap, and it gave me time to get some refreshments and get some of the stuff ready to go for the show. We've got a bunch of articles to discuss today, so I've only got a few of them up right now. These ones I did actually read, and then the other ones, some of them we'll be reacting to as we come across them because I didn't get around to read them. As typical, there's just so much news, and the headline enough is enough to decide uh, that might be worth discussing. And you've seen it before. We get to it, it's like, that wasn't what they made it out to be. But there are some that we do know what's going on, so that's fun. So we want to say good afternoon, good evening, and good day, and good evening to Anders, and good morning to Eddie. And let's get started here. So first up, I was talking about this one's actually not exactly an article. I got a couple of emails from the government about recalls that my car might or might not be involved in. And one of them, two of them, it was actually applied to my car. Uh, they had the rolling stop issue with the FSD beta prior to 10.10, and then they had this one didn't actually apply to me as written, but it was a flaw in our car where the seatbelt buckle doesn't always, when it's not buckled, it doesn't always chime. Where in our case, the car chimes even if you are buckled, which was uh, it was interesting that it did it that way. Uh, so then it got me to thinking, with Tesla, Rivian, and a few others, when something like this comes down the pipe, you just wait for a software update and you could push go right in your driveway, right in your office. Well, the car is not in your office, but while you're in the office. And then it got me to thinking about the automakers that charge for updates, and the automakers that can do updates, but they only do them to the stereo because either you've got a situation where it's illegal for the manufacturer to do repairs to the car, or where their dealer agreement prohibits them from doing repairs to the car. So at that point, you then have to drive to the nearest dealership and have them either hook up to their Wi-Fi or plug a computer or a USB stick into your car. And that one just, I think it's a little old school, and I don't know if it's a matter of we need to change how we handle legal recalls, or if it's a matter of I understand that the dealerships, if you start trying to cut them out of their repair money, because repair is where they make the money, they might get a little feisty with the manufacturers. But at the same time, as someone who has worked in the dealership, if I had a long line of people out the door where all I had to do was go and put in USB sticks, and it didn't really pay all that well, I would. I mean, yeah, you could upsell them oil changes or whatever, but you can't really do that on an EV. And I would be more annoyed that there's a line of 100 people out the door than I would be. Ooh, let's get some money. Let's do some business. It might just be me, but the other recalls, like the one for the Model 3 trunk cabling for the camera, or the Model S front latch might not be aligned correctly. Those ones make perfect sense to me because now you have to touch the car, and I would much rather have the customer in front of me and deal with it. Or in the case of Tesla, you've got mobile Ranger. Same with Rivian, you've got mobile service, and that one makes sense because you got to touch the car. But I'm wondering if we need to rethink how we do software updates, or if it's a matter of they're going to have to figure a way around this, like maybe renegotiate their agreements at renewal, so that if it's legal in their state, so that they don't lose business to folks who can just push a button and be done with it. Because all the manufacturers have recalls. I mean, we had one from we had several of them in the past month. In fact, there's one I've got in the list coming up from Kia, and it's not an EV, but I put it in there just to showcase some items. And it was take a quick look here. Let's say hello to some folks who just showed up. We've got Exotic Geeks, hello, and we've got Robert Griffin. Good evening. And so let's take a look and see. They've got this article from Electrek that details how, at the time of writing, how each of these manufacturers handled their OTA policies. So let's see. All right, so by manufacturer, for instance, Audi does offer over-the-air updates, but only for maps. I mean, that's why only maps. I mean, thankfully they are doing it for maps because my Honda, it was really inexpensive to do the maps at something like $300, $200. But my Toyota, I had to get the map DVD for $600. So that thing never got updated. I think the Honda I did once, and the Toyota never happened. Let's see. Other software updates must be done manually at the dealership. Um, let's see. Audi uses OTA physical knobs and buttons. The toggles must all be checked to ensure they're synced up with a given software update. What? That's ludicrous. I mean, they have e buttons like where the state doesn't really matter, or you can just query the computer and say, "Hey, where are the buttons at?" and it'll tell you this one's on, this one's off. That's poor programming. They brought up a point in their article about you can do firmware over the air, or you can just do software over the air. And so the ones that don't do firmware, obviously that makes sense. You'd have to bring it in to get firmware. But my phone, my laptops, all of them, the old ones, the new ones, the work one, and my desktop, they all have backup BIOSes. And so if they fail to get their firmware, even my graphics card, if they fail to get their firmware, uh, you just restart them and they come up on the backup, and then they'll restore the backup to the primary, and you're good to go. Or some of them you have to manually do it. And then if it does work, then on the next reboot you can overwrite the backup with the working copy, or they just have a static copy from the factory, which is also fine. So then you've got BMW. BMW, I thought would be a little bit more progressive in it because they have the ability to buy or say rent your heated seats, for instance. And so they've had them since 2018. But what they currently do is you can do the infotainment system and purchase and install optional equipment features, and that's like a running theme with these legacy manufacturers is that they don't really stop you from adding stuff to the car for most of them, except for apparently Audi, but they don't, like I said, anything that's considered service, they won't fix any problems unless it's the radio or a map. So let's look at BYD. They're a Chinese company, so they have a different situation than the other legacies. So they've got D-Link. It's kind of cool, D-Link. um, da, 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 da. So they're the first Chinese automaker to offer OTA. That's I thought they would be more progressive with that since you get away with a lot more over there. They partnered with a mobile company to collaborate digital upgrades of their EVs. Canoe, they're not really out yet. I don't know that that counts, but they can say what they want to do, and so they're going to include the ADAS features, infotainment, and performance. Okay, so that's actually not as progressive as I expected for a brand new company. Faraday Future will skip them until they get a car on the road. Had my Bolt updated at the dealership related to the battery thing. That's true, and I'm curious, how much better it would have been for you to not have to go take the extra trip if you could have done it from your house. Like while you're sitting in your room, you could just go boop, and then when you next need the car, it's ready to go. Hey, David. All right, so Fisker, they've got some cars out, and then they've got some that are on the way. So let's see, the new Fiskers will be AI cloud enabled to deliver incremental and advanced features throughout the life cycle of the vehicle. That's what you come to expect. Let's see, Ford. Its new platform keeps current EV software running until the new version is ready for activation. That's very much like your computer. Like you restart it, and then all the new stuff comes in. Additionally, Ford claims this is something no other vehicle can do today from a legacy. I mean, seriously. Um, so clearly, and then that was my experience with GM as well. I heard rumors about open dealership charging center. Interesting. I'd like to know more about that. See, GM's new platform works by separating software from VIP's hardware to simplify the OTA process, enabling them to provide more robust updates and cloud services to customers. It doesn't say repairs. So far, it's on 2020, so that explains why uh, Eddie and I had such a regressive experience with our updates. We had to go into the dealership to get our updates. But we'll see how far GM actually takes this and what they do with it. Honda doesn't offer OTA. But what I do like about Honda is they don't freak out about doing updates. Like if you go in for an oil change, they'll update your transmission, your battery, whatever needs updating. They'll take care of it. Whereas some other manufacturers they don't do updates unless something is wrong, or you come in with this very specific list of hey this is bothering me, and then they say all right if customer says the magic words, then do update 7, and they won't even update the rest of the car. They'll only update that one thing, which is incredible and not in a good way. All right, so Hyundai has OTA for navigation and voice assistance only. Well, that's unfortunate. And so you're getting the trend with this, and I think that we need to do better than this for everybody, not just for the EVs either, but it, especially for the EVs because why not make a clean break with clean tech? I wasn't trying to rhyme or anything like that, but it just makes sense. You're going into new tech, so why not come forward with new processes? This one, my friend Patrick and Russell both found this independently. And speaking of software updates, some Mazdas are bricked from a radio station that didn't handle their uh, images correctly when they sent like the station ID and all that for HD radio. You could put in album art and a couple other items, and the file they used for the album art didn't have an extension. And although you don't need the extension, if the tags are telling you what they are, which this was, and what happened is the car sees this malformed data and it reboots, and then when it comes back online, it wants to go back to what it was doing before. So it's playing your favorite radio station, and it gets that image again, and it reboots, and then you're stuck in a loop. And for a while, Mazda was telling people that the only way to fix this was to replace the head unit, which was a couple of was actually a grand, more than a grand, and that was a really bad solution. Eventually, they came up with the idea that they could go through and update the software manually or do a reset. They were saying that they couldn't do a reset, which I just found it funny to me if the new system had the settings in the car rather than in the head unit, and when you put in the new radio, it wanted to play your favorite radio station, and they ruined the new unit because that sounds like something that a programmer that did this might do. And then I also joked that this might be why they have a 100-mile EV in 2022 is that if your radio is going to brick the car, you don't want to be too far from home. But that was a mean joke, and I shouldn't have done it, but I still think it's funny. And yeah, so yeah, $1,500 to replace the radio. And let's see what the promoted comments on this are. How did a software package brick a hardware component? Built a telematics solution a few jobs ago. Very simplified version is that the head unit is loaded. This image went into its cache and tried to decode it. His software bug locked up, and the watchdog rebooted it. Then the first thing it does when it reboots is try to decode the image, locks up, and reboots forever. The actual manufacturer of the radio control unit, whatever, may be able to fix it on a bench with special test harnesses. But if it's stuck in a boot loop, there likely isn't any way for them to erase or update the firmware on it. Okay, so that makes sense. So maybe they couldn't, maybe they didn't build in a solution for them to force an update, which is weird because on a car you would think that you would have an option to just zero everything out before it loads everything up. A lot of computers have that today. Hey, Luna. You made a little debut, not a little debut, but you made another little appearance, a little cameo on the other video. Let's see here. Tell Motoko hello. Let's see. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. The can accessible update are like they're supposed to be running, but it seems odd they wouldn't have an option for it to go into some sort of safe mode where it just goes straight into update mode. A couple of my cars have had an option to force them into update mode if they were going a little wonky. So, but that's a good behind the scenes look into that. All right, what's next? And I'm sorry to the folks on Twitch. I finally remembered to undo the chat lockout, but then when I tried to load up my phone to do it, it didn't let me in. So so the chat's still locked out over there. Um, and then speaking of firmware updates, Porsche was one of the ones that was going to charge you after your first year of updates, and it wasn't cheap because nothing on Porsche is cheap. And they decided that for 2020, the Taycan owners are going to get a bunch of updates for free, and they did do this. When the 2021 came out, it came out with a bunch of stuff that should have been there, and it should have been there so badly that they went ahead and did it for free, even though they said they weren't going to. And one of their managers made this asinine comment. He's like, "Oh, people don't want their cars to be like their phones, so we don't want to do a lot of updates, even if you are subscribed to them." Everything updates today. The refrigerator, the dryer, the doorbell, the TV. People are used to updates by now. As long as you're not updating every day, most people don't have a problem with it. Or if you do update every day, as long as you don't get in their way, they're not going to say anything. Especially uh, if you don't move anything around. Like if everything stays the same sort of style of operation, the same UI UX, they'll just appreciate the new stuff, even if they don't use it. Where you run into trouble is where, like I said, the updates block them from doing what they want to do when they want to do it, or if you move their cheese. If you move people's buttons around, like if they don't care if it looks different, if everything is still where it belongs, it looks better. They won't complain as much if they don't like the new look. But if this new look, like we saw with Tesla version 11, a new look, and you've moved a bunch of stuff in a way that doesn't make it feel better for most people, then you'll hear about it. But thankfully, Tesla did listen to feedback on that, and they are making tweaks to kind of jive the people who like it and the people who don't like it, so that everybody can be happy. So this is what I'm talking about here. These you get wireless AirPlay, wireless Apple CarPlay, sorry, but don't get Android Auto. They get the plug-in charge and a bunch of other items. But by plug-in charge, I mean like you can go to these DC fast chargers and just plug in, and the car will identify itself. So you don't need to get out a key tag or an app, or just plug it in. They know who to charge, and they take care of it. But you had to bring the car into the dealership to get that. You couldn't just download a file from a website into a flash drive, or hook the car up to your Wi-Fi, or anything simple like that. And Patrick brought up a point that somebody complained about having the right grade of thumb drive, and for that I say simply run the test on the person's computer, or if you don't want to write a computer software, then you let them do it, and then you put it in the car, and then make the car run the test on the equipment before it accepts the update, because you do want to make sure it's a valid update, and you do want to make sure it's not damaged in transit. So while you're checking that, just check and see if you're going to have a problem with reading the drive correctly, and tell them why. Don't just throw an error. Just tell them why. Hey, this one's too cheap. It's slow. Don't use it. And then they'll use another one, and it'll pass. They'll update their car, or just do it over Wi-Fi. So a lot of these cars have cellular, so you can do it over cellular. Especially OTA updates for safety, they are welcome. Exactly. And the whole argument about people don't want a cell phone for a car. Like when Tesla updated the airbags, I didn't hear anybody complain that they made the car safer. I'd like that for everybody. Like you see me rag constantly on those companies that got us a 0 star and a 1 star in the European crash test, and not just because that they failed the test, but also because they felt that that was okay for folks in a less expensive car. I don't think that safety should be optional, and that basic stuff that you've mastered should be an extra cost item. I understand, like I said, if lidar cost, it doesn't now, but say if a lidar module still costs $10,000, I don't expect you to put a $10,000 lidar module on a $5,000 car. I get that, but uh, it's 100 years in. We know how to build crumple zones. We know how to deal with just basic stuff like that. Airbags are required, so make an airbag that doesn't shoot BBs at people. I mean, it's come on, it's let me move on. Let me move on. So then the Michigan wireless road charging system came back into the news, and I was confused why. Until I learned that it's a matter that they've decided it's going to be wireless. They've decided where and how it's going to be for the most part. So it's back, and it's going to be a mile-long road outside of Detroit. And folks still bring up a very good point that Michigan doesn't have the best roads or weather. So I brought up an example of a truck that, like a big lifted truck that fell into a gigantic pothole in front of me my first time in Detroit. Uh, what if that truck had grounded out? Like I don't know how that's going to be set up. And then we talked about how the induction pickups would be set up. They're not free, and no cars on the road currently have one that is compatible with their system because all the current cars with inductive charging, you have to be parked, and then once you put them in park, the car engages a lockout, so you can't drive, and you have to line up just perfectly. And there's a lot of things that could go wrong with this, but if they treat it like the battery trains, the old existing ones, and then the new ones that are coming out now, where you can kind of drive off of the path, and then when you come back onto the charging road, that the battery recharges itself. Or if you're on a long trip, it just keeps it topped up. I think that would be really cool. All right, and then this one came up a lot this week. My friend Georgia shared it on What Drives Us. Uh, People are starting to fight over charging, and it's not worth it. Don't do it. And the other problem is that you've got in this country anyway, everybody is just just wickedly armed, and they have a short temper, so it's not worth starting anything for this. And I'm an offender. I didn't get into a fight, but I saw a bunch of people arguing, and they weren't moving to the charger, and I took it at Thanksgiving, and I shouldn't have done that, but well, they were distracted, and it was open, and I should have been a bigger person about it. I wasn't. So if you walk across the road with hobnail boots, that's another good point. Yeah, or some sort of like if it's snowing and you're wearing cleats of some sort. Yeah, I said that about fighting before. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, we saw. I don't know if we were doing the show when this one happened or not, but we saw in California where that elderly gentleman was assaulted by another man for not waiting his turn correctly. He The way he responded wasn't the best way to de-escalate it, and his wife had to drag him out, but not because he was down, but because she knew he was gonna go toe to toe with this younger guy, and it was better not to fight, and so she pulled him away. EVs became prevalent. That's a bigger issue. Yeah, yeah. It's not really a problem with the chargers. It's people, and you gotta share, and that's something that worldwide that we're really bad at doing these days is sharing. Um, on the whole, I mean, I think everybody in this room would be fine, but on the whole, we find a lot more selfishness than we have in recent years. And David asks, I wonder how many EV commercials will grace the big game. That's that's a good question. I'm curious. Was that 6 o'clock? We'll find out. Let's see here. And then the with the transportation bill that passed, the infrastructure bill, they've got $5 billion allocated to putting what was it, a million chargers across the nation, and Tritium is a local uh, charging station manufacturer, and they claim that they're going to make as many as 30,000 chargers annually and create 500 local jobs, which I thought was pretty cool. And then this one, I wasn't sure how I wanted to handle it, but what I'm here for is the headline as well as a little bit of the details. So let's look at this headline real quick. So, Motorius has a headline. They've changed the headline since to something ridiculous, and I don't want to get into that because it's the typical thing they do when somebody gets into a situation. They start digging up their background to find every little thing to justify it. But as they wrote it, they wrote Dodge Challenger driver kills 9 in Las Vegas crash, and we almost never see them call out anything that's not, oh, Tesla did this, Tesla did that, and so they're out there. They're just less common than we see when they call out a Tesla article for whatever reason. What it is, I think, is they're going for clicks, and Dodge Charger gets some clicks. And the situation was that he was doing 100 miles an hour in a populated area and ran a red light and made a mess of things and killed some people. So in these powerful cars, you need to be responsible. You need to pay attention to what's going on, and then, I mean, if it's red, stop. It's not that hard. I mean, it is at 100 miles an hour, but you shouldn't have been there in the first place. Super Alpine Sports EV. That sounds like fun. All right, so what is this article here? Um, so we talked about here and on the Tesla Life, we talked about how Tesla had an anode factory and they were getting equipment for it. Electric found that they'd received permits for a cathode factory. And I told Patrick and Mark, I said, hey, it only makes sense that if you're going to build part of a battery, you might as well build the whole battery on site, especially when you need, billions of batteries for your electric car factory. And sure enough, there it is, and they got their permit in there. So that's more progress. I think that Terra, Texas, is going to be a force to be reasoned with. All right. So next up, for those of you in 4 European countries, you have winter holidays going on, and France has free charging from February 11th to February 27th at the superchargers before 10 a.m. and after 6 p.m. local time. Germany, between Friday and Sunday. Oh, Friday and Sunday as well in France. So Friday to Sunday between February 18th and March 6th, but before 8 a.m. and after 7 p.m. in Germany. Let me share this. It's coming from Drive Tesla Canada, or as I like to say, Drive Tesla Worldwide, because they've got news for everybody all around the world. Germany, Friday to Sunday. We talked about Germany. Norway, Friday to Sunday, the 18th to the 6th, before 12 p.m. and after 7 p.m. And then Sweden, which is the 18th through the 6th, also Friday to Sunday, before 11 a.m. and after 6 p.m. There we go. And then pop a link in the chat where we can see the full list of places. And then there's the link for the chat. It's not in, oh, it's in German, okay. Like, what is it trying to do here? Hello, Liam. Good to see you. All right, so next up, we've got a video. This one is a reason not to let go of your steering wheel or to try and chase it while it's turning. If you're turning it and it wants to do something weird, just close your grip like that, and then the wheel will stop turning in your hands. Or in my case, now that I've got the yoke, I'll have to be more careful with it. But I'll get a feel for what to do next with the yoke. but it's the same situation. I'm already got my feet over the brake or the accelerator, depending on what I think it's going to do next, and then I'm near the controls. Usually still one handed, but if I'm getting nervous about what it's going to do, I go two handed, and you're in control of the car, so don't let it do silly things. So let's take a look at the part of this YouTube video, and as a PSA for what you don't do. Let me mute it. He's got language. All right, so he turns, and then whoops. So you saw how he kind of had to chase the wheel. He was already holding it. He just had to close his hand, and then he went over the top instead for some reason. So just pay attention when you're using this thing. The car can do uh, the wrong thing at the worst possible moment, is to quote them when they put you into the program, and it's on you. You're the driver, and you're supposed to be teaching this thing to drive. So if you let it do something foolish, that's on you. You're not being a good teacher if you do that. Let's see. So another nice one was SpaceX sent an engineering team to Fiji. Remember, we were talking about how it seemed that Elon was asking if Tonga needed help after the volcano erupted, but they also when they said yes, they did. I wasn't sure if the politician that answered was not authoritative or what Elon was getting at when he seemed to kind of ignore what was going on there, and it looks like the right people finally got to him, and they did get with Fiji to set up a ground station for Starlink, so that way they have a way to bounce the signal into Tonga. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I do have a Tesla. So let's see. And so the I'm on my second one, and then at some point I traded the first one or sold the first one to get the next one, and I'm hoping to just add the Cybertruck to the list. But we'll see how everything plays out with that because I'm in line for a Cybertruck and an Aptera, and depending on where I live, three cars in the driveway would be a tax nightmare. So we'll see where we are at the time. So Elon had mentioned about how they could do it easily with the laser links, but since they don't have all the laser links lined up yet, that didn't happen. And we've got another Starlink story about sending enough satellites up in space coming up. It was not the best outcome by any means. So Tonga is going to get some service, which is good. Let's see. Then we had a software update where the color picker that we talked about in China is in the U.S. now, as well as windshield wiper defrost for properly equipped Model 3s and Ys. I loved that on my Model S. I used it for the second time ever today on the Model X because it's snowing again. And when you're in park, the driver profile, Wi-Fi, and LTE icons are now visible on the Model 3 and Model Y. I'm guessing Model S and X refresh screens. Uh, for me, they never went away. They did mess with other stuff, but not that. And they also put the option to put your dash cam clips in the quick where you can put the four apps that you want to keep. One of them can be save a dash cam clip. So, and let's see. Does it say how new the new? No, it doesn't. Just the new Model Ys and Model 3s. So, moving on. That. All right, so we heard Ford talking several times about how they were catching up to Tesla. They were learning the ropes and not going to fall behind, and they're doing it. So for the Mustang Mach-E production costs, they cut them by $1,000 by following Tesla's continual improvement model, and we'll see how this keeps up. My cousin just got his Mach-E a couple of weeks early by doing, instead of getting the one he was in line for, he grabbed one from a dealership that wasn't charging extra markups, which was great. And so, according to Automotive News, they studied the competitor products, gathered input from social media and their fleet, and they were able to eliminate $1,000 in production costs, which is pretty cool. All right. Zachary, my contribution for your hard effort promoting sustainable transportation and energy. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It's awesome. Ford seems to be ahead of GM. Would love to see them survive. Absolutely. GM, they started earlier, just like Nissan started earlier, but then both of them seem to kind of step back, and I don't know why. They just they could have done better, and they should have. Of course, GM did have that small issue with the recall. Their car is self-immolating, just like the cars in Korea were doing. So, but they should have managed that better, especially since they had a blueprint for how to handle it in the Hyundai Kia fires. So I it's sad, but I don't know that I'm sympathetic to their situation. They did it to themselves. They could have handled it so much better. Yes. All right. So then, last what 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how the politicians aren't or weren't saying the word Tesla. They were afraid of it, and I said it wasn't really that important. Well, we got he did it. I didn't think it'd be this guy to do it. I just thought it'd be just somebody in charge, but not the buck stops
Alone.
here.
Since 2021, companies have announced investments totaling more than $200 billion in domestic manufacturing here in America. From iconic companies like GM and Ford building out new electric vehicle production to Tesla, our nation's largest electric vehicle manufacturer, to innovative younger companies like Rivian building electric trucks or Proterra building electric buses, which I saw at a virtual tour last year when I met with the CEO virtually, and they really impressed me. These companies joining Intel, bringing microchip manufacturing back to America after decades of decay.
Yeah, so I didn't expect he would be the one to say the word Tesla, and it seemed that after he did, that all the other folks who seemed to have an allergy to the word, they were able to say it as well. I totally understand being able to put your partners ahead of the not partners, but it was really childish to pretend that the others didn't exist at all. And here he pointed out that where they actually stand, like they are the number one right now, rather than pretending that GM was number one with 28 cars in the last 4 months. I mean, I would say GM. I would say Ford before I say GM if I was still going to pretend that the others didn't exist. And it was just really weird. And as David says, yeah, Ford seems to be ahead of GM. I would love to see them survive. And GM's got a head start. They've run out of their tax credit, but right now, like Ford is kicking it out of the park with the Mach-E, and they've got the Lightning on the way. And I mean, GM's got what it takes, but they need to start putting put their feet on the ground again. They messed up. Can't really deny Tesla's success for long. I mean, they clearly did, but you can't do it for long. Let's see. Biden or staff figured out that not acknowledging was becoming a thing. He'll still reserve the goodies for the union partners first. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If you have your partners and you want to let them get first dibs or whatever, I get that. I understand that. But to pretend that the others don't exist at all is just mad childish. Like I don't think a kid could pretend you didn't exist for that long. And whew, let's see here. What's next? Got a nice little list. Um, all right, so this one is a little older. I had it on our list. I don't know that I ever talked about it, but in China, Tesla has ended the Model Y standard range production, and new customers have to get a dual motor vehicle. But if you were in line already, rather than telling you to suck it up and kick rocks like they did to some of the folks here who had a Model Y standard range reservation. They gave them a free switch to a Model Y rear wheel drive long range, which was sorry, I said dual motors earlier. Just the standard range battery is gone, and yeah, so it's interesting that the way that the Chinese Tesla has customer service and PR, and not NPR, but also has a PR department, and all the rough edges that we complain about here in the states and in Canada and other parts of the world, that they seem to have got that over there. I don't know if it's a legal requirement or if it's just a completely different team. But as I keep saying every time I do rag on them for having poor customer services, I have seen them getting slightly better every time I interact with them, and we'll see what happens here. I did put in a ticket for my AC not working again because it wasn't working yesterday, and I texted them on it, and I haven't got a response back to my text yet. Usually I get responses back like that. Um, I also found it a lot harder to schedule a mobile appointment because really what I wanted them to do was not hold my car for a couple days and figure out what's going on. I wanted them to read the logs and see if it was the same thing as before. And I had to try a couple times to find something where I could get it to do a mobile appointment because I don't even want a tech to show up at my house. I want them to just dial into the car and read the bug reports that I submitted so they can see what's up with it. Let's see. GM will stop selling Vauxhall, number one selling car and van in UK. Yeah, they did, and that was a weird choice. It's like they wanted to just cut strings. Good deal. Positive for Tesla. Positive PR for Tesla. Relatively small bucks. Exactly. I guess like you have a good point there. It's like they're not really trying to sell any more cars here. Not that they're trying to stop selling cars. But they're not trying to add to the pile. So that could explain why they don't put the extra effort into it here. I mean, they do a little bit, but not like they do in China. And then this was another one I pulled up. I don't know if I brought it online or not. Uh, Sawyer Merritt and a couple others found photos of the dash of the Cybertruck, and they say it looks like there is a screen behind the yoke. I hope there is because that would be the only thing that would make it difficult for me to transition between Model X and the yoke. Is now that they've gotten rid of the door handles, is is I have grown accustomed to having a screen in front of me, not off to the side, or not only off to the. Well, I had a Prius once, and the Prius had everything all in the middle. But then my Honda, everything was front and center. So yeah, I would really hope that the Cybertruck is dual screen. Absolutely. The EU wanted the Bolt and Ampera, but they boxed it there. Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry, Ampera E. You're right. Yeah, because the Ampera was a Volt. So worldwide, they made the mistake of using a very similar name for two different vehicles. That was incredible that they could do that. All right, let's see here. And then there was an article written about how Elon Musk blocked the jet tracking Twitter account after the teen asked him for 50K to delete it. And somebody asked how he could block an account, and I explained you hit the block button under their name, so it didn't stop him. He just can no longer interact with him on his account. And okay. So then there was an update to the article that Elon also blocked the kid's personal account as well, not just the tracking account. So, uh, kind of more of a like, hey, I never want to interact with you again, rather than anything substantive. Uh, as a comment, one guy said, if he was my son, I would encourage him to request Musk give him an internship at Tesla or SpaceX instead of for the cash. That would have gotten him much ahead in the long term. He will no doubt be courted by shady elements in the dark web. The kid has chosen his career path. I don't know about like his fate is sealed, but yeah, you're right. If you had guided the child into you know something a little more productive to Musk and to yourself, you could have a nice job. And exactly, David, kid got greedy. The first offer wasn't bad at all, and as the commenter was saying, that was a learning opportunity if his parents had caught on to it before he made a mess of things. So yeah, it did feel like blackmail. And then other people say the kid was greedy. Yeah, he got greedy, but I wouldn't say his character is that of a greedy person. So let's go on to another article. All right, so at this point, I need to reload. So stand by while I click on some articles. Oh, that's December. I don't want December. I need. Where are we? Oh, those are old shows. I need a current show, please. There we go. All right, got a couple coming for you guys. Bear with me while the computer loads them up. Oh, it's mad at me. It's like, why did you click on 10 articles at once? What are you doing to me, son? Oh. All right, so we talked about the wireless road, so I can skip that one. Oh no, this one's gone. I don't even remember what it was, so I can't even go find the original article. Da, 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 da. These will work. These will work fine. Oh, someone is at the doorbell. Why? Busy. Let me see if I can talk through this thing. Sorry about that. I'm a realtor in the area, and I've got a flyer for you. No, thank you. I'm renting this place. So where was I? I was loading up this other article for you. Sorry about that. Usually they run away when I talk into the doorbell. So the first one is, yeah. Oh, he says, um, this first one. You guys know I don't. I'm not a fan of gas appliances, and at least not the cooking ones. And I'd kept my mouth shut for the most part because I figured it was a matter of preference or that they were only doing massive damage while they were running. And it comes to find out, I touched on this at the end of last show, I think it was, but now I have an article on it that I did because we shared that article from the Weather Channel, which gave us no sources. These guys linked to the actual study that found out that even the brand new units are leaking methane constantly, and good for the climate. Not good for you even. Like the indoor air quality here is sitting at 90. It never reaches 100 because we've got particulates in there all the time. Like right now it's at 90 because it's dry, but in the summertime we get it down to like 97 or so, which isn't bad. Unless my wife is cooking, because then I don't know what it is when I'm cooking because the sensor's in here in the office. But when she's cooking, I can see it drop to like 87, 76, and um, but that's while you're cooking. But we come to find out even the brand new units, as soon as they're connected, they're leaking methane. Even the ones without a pilot light, and We could do better. It's kind of interesting. I can chat in Twitch, but nobody else can. uh, so I understand it, like, oh, I need the control, or I like how fast it is. But as we talked about with Omar, if you have induction cooking, you can dial it in exactly where you want it. It can get just as hot, in fact, faster even. Just like electric cars go faster than gas cars off the line, so does the induction. Yeah, burning in enclosed places is never clean enough. Love the old Nissan Advert. Everything was on gas. Exactly. In fact, let's pull that one up for those who haven't seen it yet. Nissan gas powered. Nissan. 2 parts per million meter by oven. Yikes. All right, so I found the Nissan ad. It was not participating with me. Whoa, what are you doing? It's like, hey, you want to watch Now You Know? It's like, well, I'm not going to watch Now You Know while I'm doing a show. So let's see. Here's the Nissan Leaf gas powered everything. This is how I think of gas powered ovens. It goose it up. Yes, the Leaf ad. Ooh, at the dentist's office? You don't want to hear that.
What if everything ran on gas? Then again, what if everything didn't? The 100% electric, zero gas Nissan Leaf. Innovation for the planet. Innovation for all.
They meant it as a dig because the Volt does run on gas, but at the same time, even though the Volt runs on gas, it was mostly an EV when most people used it. Hey, Omar, we're talking about the induction ovens versus gas ovens again.
Oh, that. Yes.
We finally had an article with stats, so I figured it was time to share it again. Because a
Yeah,
friend of ours,
I didn't know
yeah,
that that the gas stoves and ovens are constantly leaking methane all the time. Had no
yeah,
idea about that. Even when they're off, and
right,
even though they may have an electric pilot instead of a flame,
yeah.
I had no idea.
And it was just like you. I didn't know either, so that was why I just kind of kept my mouth shut whenever somebody said I prefer gas. And I'm like, okay, well, you're only poisoning your family when you cook. But then when that study came out, I was that changed my tone because now it's not just a matter of you only cook for what 2 hours a day at the most, and then holidays. But if that thing's just running 24/7, it's no longer something I can just ignore.
And if you think about it logically, I mean, you're burning something indoors.
Right, right. David was
It's
saying
like
that the combustion inside can never be healthy.
I
And then,
remember when I was real little, we had a kerosene heater, space heater,
yeah,
and we would burn the kerosene in that heater, and the smell would be on everything, be all in your clothes, be on
yes,
everything. Like you couldn't get that out.
exactly.
Um, and I knew then when I was a kid, I'm like, this can't be good for us. This cannot be healthy.
Right. Yeah. So one of our friends in one of our private groups, she was talking about, "Oh, you'll never take gas from me," and then we shared that. I think it was you that told her that this, it's constant. And I was like, at that point, I can't. I get that you have a preference, but like I said with that Samsung one, for instance, you turn it up and you get blue light. So I need to see visually. I can't comprehend numbers while I'm cooking. It's all by feel. You can see. They calibrated it. That blue is the same blue that you get from the flame, so you don't even have to translate. It's just there. So
And if you think about it, it's kind of the same thing with people transitioning from gas burning vehicles to EVs.
Right, and they say the same
So
stuff, which
so
was
the
amazing because she made the transition to EV.
right, but that's the thing. People
Yeah,
like the same look and feel of something that they're used to that's familiar to them. Oh,
right.
these EVs look weird. Why don't they have a grill? That's why they start putting these faux grills on
Yes,
EVs when they don't really need them. It's for that familiarity for people to, look at it and have that look and feel.
exactly.
It's the
And
same
then we've
thing.
got a article coming up from Toyota about look and feel, and we'll talk about this again about how people just can't change sometimes. And I need the look and feel of a V6 in my Toyota, but I know the electric is the way to go. So we're going to make my EV do the stuff that gas does because it's deficient, not because it was cool. Like, oh, and it needs to shake and jerk me, like when Nissan did that to the CVTs. They can have a smooth power curve and they just rev up and then they just hold it until they get where you're going and they rev down. They put in fake shift points to shake you, so it would feel more powerful.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
Or like the fake noise that some automakers put in
Right.
EVs to
Right.
simulate that sound that people like.
Yes, and then
And
my
it's
favorite is all the cars racing up the road here. They're making this insanely loud noises. Um, if you've got a fake noisemaker inside the car, why do I need to hear it? You've already tricked the guy into thinking he's going fast by making it go vroom vroom inside the car. Why do I got to hear it at 2 a.m.? And then Robert brings up a really good point. Induction stoves cost over $1,000 for fitting, and that is part of the problem. Is just like switching to EV is not always cheap. The red eyes are cheap as heck, but nobody wants the red eye because it's garbage. And and the coils, nobody likes the coils because they're hard to keep clean and they don't cook as well. We don't like the coils. I understand it, but as Robert said, to get to the good electric is currently not
it's expensive.
that cost
It's not
effective.
cheap.
So it exactly the closest I can get right now to an inexpensive one is I think IKEA has one for like $50 for a single burner. You can find them for cheaper on Amazon and other places, but then you got to worry about how long will it last because the first one we got was from Amazon and it was at the time I realized how much was coming from the gas cooking. I was like, we have to. It was the 110 plugins, and they work. They don't use much power, but that one we cooked on it so much that it gave up on us. It's like, ugh. Whereas the ones that are built into your countertop, they have a much better warranty on them. Robert had carbon monoxide poisoning when he was younger from an oil burner. Yikes. Oil boiler, yeah. And then David says the 20-year life of methane is frightening too. Way more powerful warming gas. Exactly. And it just keeps on trucking until it's finally done. And I bet you that 20 years is an average too. So I wouldn't be surprised to find some molecules going for up to 30 years even. Let's see. It's a pretty cool discussion. Even wonder a little bit if the lack of shifting points in the transmission triggered some sort of mild car sickness, and some folks are used to that. Exactly. And I'm curious if that's part of what they're going to go for with this Toyota situation when we get to that article. It's way down on my list, so I got to find it, and the computer's going to get mad at me for it. Electric is 19.7 pounds per kilowatt hour for gas. Is 4.8. Yeah, so that's the other part. Is we need to price this effectively, because right now every time we let cheap gas go out, we're subsidizing fossil fuels. We're subsidizing people to make the wrong choice, whereas we should be encouraging them to make the right choice. And I'm glad that our electric doesn't cost anywhere near what your electric costs. That's incredible. Just day after day that you tell me what it's running for. Wow. I mean, for here it's
Wait a
13
minute, 19
pounds. Yeah.
whoa. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Per kilowatt?
Kilowatt hour. And for us, it is 13 cents per kilowatt hour in this house.
Yeah, we're at 16 cents.
16. No wonder you got that solar up.
It's still not it's still not $19.
Right. I got my house appraised in South Carolina, and for the first time ever, like when I bought the house, we got our solar actually counted against the appraisal on the house when we bought it, and so we got a discount basically because he had solar on it. Everybody who was in the market was afraid of it, and I was looking explicitly. I want a house with solar on it, and and then when we got in, we put more panels because I didn't realize how bad I was gonna be doing on the electricity and. The Volt, it was able to keep up with the Volt, but then I added the Model S, and it couldn't keep up anymore, and so now it's got one of the larger arrays in the neighborhood. It's not the largest. I think it's like the third or fourth largest, and we have two power bills every year. It's nice. And let's see. Could Robert buy solar? That probably seems insane. He can, but to get solar on his roof, they need to rebuild the roof because the solar installers told him that they won't touch it until they
Until he gets a new roof.
renovate the roof. Yeah. The question then, I wonder if you could do ground solar, Robert. Would you be able to put some panels in your garden, or is that against the regulations? Or I don't know if you have what do you have HOAs over there or something similar?
Maybe he can get a solar roof.
That would be a good way to get the retrofit, but it's expensive as a heck, though.
It is, but I mean, if you look at the price of a new roof plus the price of solar
That's true.
panels,
Yeah, it would be
it's
cheaper than
probably
buying
very
panels and a
similar.
roof. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Okay, good point. I forgot about that part. I
And they're
hadn't
going to
even
price
noticed that.
hike them 4 times the amount. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be severely looking into other options.
and then Eddie's got the same problem. Oh, wait, Robert's got the 4 times. Okay, I thought it was Eddie because of the icon. I was like, yeah, Eddie's got the problem. He doesn't own his roof. So we have to do better at this. Like right now, in multifamily situations, like in some townhouses you can do it, and others you don't own the roof, so they won't let you do it. But others, thankfully, the local laws are strong enough that you could do it anyway, which I like. So on Thursday, Elon had a little presentation, and I was surprised to see that it was on time. I was grabbing myself a snack, and then the music came on. I had to go back to the couch. But I think what helped with that was there was a lot of press in the audience, and usually what makes Elon late is when he's talking to the reporters. So since they were waiting for him as well, there was nobody to make him late except for himself. But we were a minute behind, and I was like, yeah, let me go grab a snack real quick, and then the music started, and I turned right back around. So we learned some new details about the Starship, and it's looking incredible. And it seems that it's going to stay the same diameter for a while, but it's going to get longer. And Elon, one thing that stood out to me was he claimed that it would be less expensive for long haul than an airplane, which I can see how, and that's pretty cool. But at the same time, I wonder when it will be cost and fuel efficient relative to shorter hops. Would you have to fill it up all the way, or does jet fuel need to get ridiculous? Because with them running this on methane, they can make it from solar and water, solar and carbon dioxide, and they got it. So it's interesting. And then another thing that was pointed out to me that I liked was that all the people who always start whining the minute you talk about space, he showed a graph that showed just how much NASA's budget was out of all of it, and then how much all of space is out of all the money we spend. And it's next to nothing. It's like you dropped a penny out of your whole paycheck in the pond. So,
Yeah,
and then the
but
other part. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm just looking at it from the perspective of we have to advance that forward at some point.
Yeah,
I mean,
and we can do
in
two things
order,
at once.
right? Absolutely,
As a society, maybe as a person we can't, but as a society we.
right. And I mean, eventually, for human civilization to continue to survive, eventually we have to be multiplanetary. And the only way to
Exactly.
get there is to start. We have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and then also when you look at the amount of tech that we got from space, I mean, like we had Velcro, we got medicines, we've got GPS. Like navigation was just fundamentally just upended by space. And David pointed out, he brought up a good point about how it's harder to rendezvous with the ISS than other destinations, as well as he said it's easier to dock with yourself than the ISS, and he's right, because if you built both halves, then it's a lot easier to do the communication, and you're not coming off on this wild angle, and so the orbital inclination of the ISS was kind of a compromise between the U.S. and Russia because of the way that the Earth rotates underneath it. That it worked out as a good compromise between both countries. Yeah. So I was impressed with the presentation. Another thing that stood out was Elon said it's probably not going to get any wider, but they'll make it taller, and they're still not done with the engine configurations, so they could change. He showed off the chopsticks, how they were going to work. That was pretty cool to me. What else did everybody else like in this? How about you? What's your favorite part of it?
So he's gonna send some artists to the moon.
Yep.
And let them do orbit around the moon. Space tourism stuff that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting that he pointed out, like, they were taking artists up there, like they had that I forgot his name, the billionaire that was...
His handle is "You Suck."
but anyway, he's basically funding it by buying all the seats, and then he's going to give it away to the artists to, like, bring them along with him.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was a little weird the way he wanted to set up a dating system with him, but but it had nothing to do with the rocket. It was just like at the same time that he was doing this, he was doing that, and it was weird. Yeah, the new static fire, that was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, the fact that they made those engines more powerful,
and cheaper,
the increase in
smaller.
power,
Yes.
making them cheaper, smaller, and more powerful. That's amazing. That's an amazing leap forward.
Yeah. So on the next article, we've got this here. We've got the VW ID.5 production is to start at a newly converted ICE factory, the Zwickau plant. I don't know how to pronounce that. Is there a read aloud from here? Zwickau plant. Okay, stop.
Is the Z silent?
I guess so.
Zwickau?
She said it like a T. That's cool. And so that's going to start at a plant. The VW said, VW does a lot of press releases, so it's hard to keep up with what they say they're going to do and if they're doing it. But this is something they said they were going to do, and they are doing it. And so now the VW ID.5, you guys might be familiar with the ID.3 or ID.4 depending on where you live, but the ID.5 is finally coming online. And somebody pointed out, a bunch of people pointed out, that it's got drum rear brakes, and they're saying that in winter climates it reduces rust buildup and extends the life of the rear brakes. Since the front brakes are going to carry more of the load, it's fine for most people. I mean, the other part of it is that none of the ID line is a performance car, so you don't need four-wheel discs when you've got regen on all four wheels, assuming it's the all-wheel drive model. So yeah, they had good points on that, and it's good to see. It's like I keep saying, electrify all the things. So
that is an interesting choice that they went with drum, because you don't see that very often anymore.
It's not perceived as premium, that's for sure. But if you're never using them, then they last a long while. So this one was one I thought was weird. I was wondering if it was a case of where they set up the award so that they would win it. Like, what did we say in one of our discussions? We said this is like saying this is the best chocolate chip cookies baked by grandma with a first name beginning with the letter M. The other thing I was wondering was if this residual value was measured when the bolts were on a fire sale because they were self-immolating, and then I realized I'd accidentally set up a pun with the double fire there, and then they measured the increased value back after the recall was completed. I didn't read the article to know that, but it felt like that was the situation. But the Chevy Bolt wins the J.D. Power 2022 Canada ALG Residual Value Award, And seeing the JD Power right there tells me that it is partly a situation of the best grandmothers that make chocolate chip cookies whose first name starts with the letter M. That's how JD Power typically runs their stuff. Right. David said residual values is a barbecue. Is good drum brakes in drum brakes does not come down to the pads. Yes, this is true. And that also gives you two different braking systems, so that if one of them is deficient for some reason because of lack of maintenance or whatever, you've got the other pair as well. And it's also a lot easier to put a hand brake or even an electric parking brake on a drum, just inherently. On a disc, you basically add part of a drum to it to do it, or you have a mechanical extra system to clamp the disc shut. Then we've got the Postal Service. But before them, did I talk about the picture that I got at the for this live stream? Was somebody who couldn't park. The Model X needs all of the parking space, and she didn't give it to me, and it was the last spot.
Oh.
Fire sale.
Fire sale.
The
Yeah.
USPS has announced they plan to. They plan to order 5,000 EVs to achieve the 70% fleet electrification, which is finally in line with what they promised us. I think that Mr. DeJoy was feeling the burn from his walking back with what was promised by the administration. I'm surprised that man still has a job. But anyway, neither here nor there. A bunch of folks always ask what that goofy little grill is for, and it's because the one in the picture is actually I think it's a hybrid, right? Or is it straight gas?
I thought that was a gas one.
Okay, so they have straight gas, hybrid, and EV all on the same platform, and we know what happens when you've got a mixed platform. The duckbill vehicles.
You got.
Is Workhorse back in the running? I doubt it. But I mean, that would be good for them if they do. Assuming that they meet the contract requirements and don't send our country off for a run. I like the sample vehicle ID number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But this is good news, and I hope they actually do it. And I'd prefer to see them at 100% electrification for local carriers. Now, for rural carriers, we've already seen that carrier up in, was it Michigan or I want to say it was Michigan or Wisconsin, where he bought a Model S 85 and just ran that thing as a postal vehicle for rural carrier. So we know it works in the rural areas as well. And then this one was interesting to see. We're seeing a lot more of these never electrics, blah, blah, blah. We need the sound of a V8, blah, blah, blah. All of them are coming out with EVs. That includes Bentley. So Bentley is now spending $3.4 billion to become all electric by 2030, despite, just like Ferrari saying, oh, no, it's always going to be gas. No, and Ferrari's got EV coming as well.
I mean, eventually they can't help it. They have to do it.
Yeah, they don't have a choice. But you love to see it.
Electrify or die. That's
right.
what's
Electrify
happen.
all the things. So then this one, I saw the headline, then I didn't read it. So let's react to it live. Unless you've read it, then you can tell us about it, Omar. This strange new EV promises a 625-mile range and 8 seats. It can even go off-roading. The Fresco XL. Are you familiar with it?
I have not previously read this, so.
Okay, let's watch it together. Hopefully there's not too much music. All right, there's too much music.
Okay, too much music already.
Let's look at the pretty pictures. Wow, I mean, very few people actually go for the pizza pan wheel covers from the factory. They generally want the disc brakes to get some cooling. All right, so I mean.
Well, I mean, it's a concept vehicle, so that's all going to change. You know that it's never.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's very aerodynamic.
Yeah, but it's still a concept
no mirrors,
rendering.
No crumple zone. I like the light bar.
Yeah, they went with the Cybertruck look with the light bar.
That's why I like it.
It looks like they're
And the
trying to go
Rivian,
with the Cybertruck look,
but
but
circles
they're
instead of
rounding it
squares.
off.
Yeah. Order now. No, thank you.
Order your round Cybertruck now.
But Elon tells us to
We call it a
put rounds on it,
cybercar.
makes it more expensive. Yeah. It's like a breath of fresh air, says CEO Espen Kalvik. Anyway, seats 8. That's pretty cool. Looks like that. And that.
Yeah,
I mean,
and when do
I
they
wish them
plan
luck.
for
What's that?
this? And what's the plan for this? They're going to come.
Next year,
What is
next
it?
year somehow. But Norway is a good place to launch an EV.
Oh, absolutely. They love EVs over there.
Yeah. Fresco Motors. That's a good point. Fresco Motors. This is the Lucid. Oh, I think that this probably got linked because the Lucid is the next mileage down at 520. But the Lucid's real. You can buy it today. Does Bentley sell that many cars? I would say no, but the ones
They
they
never
do
have.
sell, that part, the ones they do sell, almost all have a gas guzzler tax attached to them because they are so fuel inefficient because they're so big and heavy.
They're so big, heavy, and yeah, they're either V8s or V12s. They're like huge.
Yes, reminds me of the old Nissan 7-seater. This is true, like the Nissan minivan, the round one, not the square one. And nice to get away from that basic SUV look. Did they though? They just stretched
Not
it
really.
out.
Not really.
Same stainless as the Cybertruck. So that means it's going to be much more expensive than Cybertruck because the whole reason that Elon's not bending or not forming the steel is because it's expensive to do so. Robert says it's going to be a movie car. Yes.
Yes, the whole handful of cars that they'll make.
Exactly.
I mean, did they say anything about pricing?
I didn't see anything in that article about pricing.
Yeah, no. So it's going to be a very low volume, very expensive vehicle if it ever comes to market.
I agree.
So we'll see.
We shall see. Let's see. This one. Oh, we talked about Bentley already. And then this one. Okay. Then here we go. Boom, boom, boom. So the chip shortage is forcing Ford to halt or cut production at 8 plants. This is from WDRB.com. This is what we were talking about, why Tesla and Toyota were having less trouble with staying in production than the others because they didn't cut their chip orders because Toyota knows how to do the Toyota manufacturing system because they invented it. And one of the first things they learned early on was if it takes too long to spin something up or down, don't stop it. Just stockpile it, unless it's something like bread or something perishable. But if it's something you can just use next year, just keep ordering it. unless it's going to be the death of the company, just keep ordering it because it's going to be too much trouble to spin it back up again. And so Toyota does spin stuff up and down, but not stuff that like chips that they can't spin back up again. And so they weathered this pretty well. Tesla, they didn't learn that. They just needed more cars than last year, so they just kept the orders up as well. But even they, Tesla has been scrambling. Like we noticed that the energy department lost chips to the car department, and they were able to make it work. And I don't know if we discussed it on this show or not, or if we're going to discuss it later. They cut some redundancy chips from the Chinese cars to make sure that they had enough chips worldwide to get enough cars out. And the others, they made the mistake of saying, "Oh, well, people aren't going to be going anywhere. They're working from home. They can't. They're on lockdown. Let's reduce the orders." And so they did. And the people who make the chips said, "Oh, well, now the people are stuck at home. They need laptops and they need computers and they need lights and cameras. So let's move this order over to these computer companies that have been asking for it. Now they have room to make it happen." And then when the car company said, "Oh shoot, we messed up. People still are driving and they need new cars," and There aren't enough used cars. What are we going to do? The chip company said, well, we're booked up. Get in line.
Well, one of the
Sucks
other
to be you.
things that happened, one of the other things that happened, which is a huge disadvantage to legacy automakers, is that they were still using the lower end
That part.
chips.
Yes.
So they wanted these lower end, really cheap chips, and the chip makers were like, "Well, look, it's easier for us to focus on we've moved on with
Right. You told
technology.
us you didn't want
Technology
them.
moves
We shut
forward.
that line
It's like
down. We moved the
instead of
machine out to the
spinning up
pasture.
these old antiquated chips, we're going to focus on all the new chips and make the new chips." Well,
Right.
one of the advantages that Tesla had is that they said, okay, whatever chips you got, give them to us, we'll make it work. So
We'll
they
figure it out.
retrofitted their boards and did other things to make whatever chips they could get their hands on work for what they had. And
Exactly.
that meant rewriting different firmware and stuff like that, but they did it. They made it work.
Right. If you were wondering why your software updates stopped coming once a month for new features, it was because they were writing the old features to the new chips and selling them and putting them in the new cars they were selling. So that's why we kept getting bug fix updates for almost a whole year, because they were just making it happen. And that's why they instead of keeping the old Celeron chip that they had in our most of our Atom chip that we have in most of our cars, they switched over to the AMZ Ryzen because that's what is in the game consoles, and they were more readily available. So they said, give us some of the bottom tier Ryzens, and we'll reprogram the cars, and it worked. Whereas that old Atom, the server manufacturers aren't using it anymore. The other car makers stopped ordering it, so it's the same situation. Oh, we put that machine out in the field; it's going to be deconstructed. We gave the space to AMD. So, do you want some AMDs? We can help you with that. Otherwise,
Right.
get in line with those other guys.
And they said, okay, we'll take what you got.
Exactly.
Right. So they took what they could get and they're just making it work. Whereas, some other manufacturers are like, no, we can't adjust on the fly and change like that. No, we need this because this is what we do and this is what we know that works. So we just need
Exactly.
that. So it's like,
Give us some
okay,
old
well,
stuff.
you're gonna be waiting.
Yeah. There was an article I have that I had a comment on. I have messed up. I'll just have to remember what my comment was. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so this next one was good news, bad news, and I was disappointed to see the bad news. So, pretty picture of solar charging, yes, but Wisconsin wants to open up electric sales for EV charging, but restrict solar-powered EV chargers, which I thought was just asinine. So,
Wait, what?
yeah. Yeah. So they're all for
Oh, so they're
EVs.
looking out for the electric companies that are selling
That part.
electricity, and
Yes.
so they're trying to maximize those profits. Gotcha.
Right. So they got two bills coming through to emphasize that selling electricity by the kilowatt hour for EVs doesn't subject the EV station owners to utility regulation. So that part is something that Tesla and everybody else that sells EV charging electricity has been wanting, because right now they can only charge by the minute in Wisconsin because it's illegal to sell electricity unless you are registered as a power company. Tesla's been tackling this another way in every state that they have this problem, like Texas. They're a power company in Texas now, so they could do this if they wanted to. But in Wisconsin, Tesla is not yet a power company, so this would actually help them. However, the key requirement is that all electricity sold through an EV charger needs to come from the local utility. So it's exactly like you said, Omar. It's protecting themselves. Or not so.
It sounds like a bill that was written by the
power
electric company, right?
Exactly.
By the power company or their lobbyist.
Here, just pass this through, and we'll get you your next check for next month. This prohibits EV chargers that get their electricity from rooftop solar or solar plus storage systems from being available to the public if they charge a fee. So now you spent all this money on a solar EV charging oasis, and you can't get any of your investment back. As Omar said, it'll protect the utility, because if you want to sell EV power, you now can't put solar, which is just cronyism. Exactly. I think Dan used that in another video.
Yes, YouTube video I found a while back.
Yeah. So she gives the example. Jana says, if if Tesla superchargers were to use solar and megapack to generate electricity for charging stations, Tesla wouldn't be able to sell this electricity to customers on a kilowatt hour basis. And when you think about it, all of the V3 chargers have batteries on them because that's how they're built, and that means they couldn't sell per kilowatt hour because they've run it through a battery. So hopefully the second two restrictions don't make it, but the ability to sell by the kilowatt hour does pass. And then this was the other part that I really didn't like. They further emphasized that no city, town, county, village, school district, or state agency is allowed to own, operate, or manage, lease, or a publicly available charging facility. Ooh, free or paid? Nah, you can't do it. Municipalities are, however, allowed to authorize a utility, or a private entity to do so on their own property. So if you're going in to open up, for some reason you had to go in person there to do power, or you got to pay your bill in person because you waited too long or something, I don't know, and you want to plug in your EV, the utility can rent out their space to somebody else to do it, but they can't do it themselves. And then even if they did it themselves, it couldn't be solar powered, which is ridiculous.
And no city or town or anything can
They went all the way through. They said
operate
city,
their
town,
own.
county, village, school district, or state agency. They wanted to make sure nobody was
They want to
doing
make sure
this.
they covered all their bases. So no public entity is allowed to own and operate their own publicly available charging facility.
But the city can do a lease on their land to somebody else, for somebody else to make the money. It looks like they were looking out for themselves, but they didn't want it to be too transparent. So they said, "Oh yeah, you can let somebody else do it if you want."
These bills are totally 100% written by the utility companies.
Right. I like the first part, but these other two parts I cannot stand.
They don't really make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yep, exactly like you said, written by them. So on February 2nd, they held a hearing on SB 537, and the Assembly scheduled an executive session to vote on it on February 3rd. For now, we don't know the results of that vote. However, Renew Wisconsin submitted testimony on the bill, and the group supports the goal of... Yeah, so this is something that Omar and I did. We testified on one of these hearings, not this one, but regarding the fuel economy standards, and they did it our way. They didn't follow what the car companies wanted to do and not get cleaner. So that was pretty cool. So currently, non-utility stations are charging by the minute and not the amount of electricity delivered. So that sounded fair at first when they put it in, but as we know with EVs, as they're DC fast charging, they start to slow down. And as we saw with Electrify America and others, you could end up getting severely overcharged because your car is capable of charging at a certain level, or it did for 30 seconds. And now that it's lowered the rate, you're still in that same bracket of charge by the minute. And so you could run out to your car, unplug it, and replug it, assuming that's not one that's charging by what your car can do at any point in time, but by rather what it did during that session. You could unplug and replug, but there's no need to do that. Other than legally, of course. Yeah. So what do you two think about that?
Things like this is what makes it hard to switch over.
But that's what they want. They don't want anything to change.
It doesn't help that the electric company, who's going to make money from electric cars, is against this process.
Well, they're afraid they'll make less money with the solar power.
Well, my thing is, if the utility companies want to protect themselves, what they should be doing is installing their own charging and their own charging infrastructure, and then charge people from that charging, and they'll make the money, as opposed to, let's say, Electrify America or whoever. They could just be a straight up competitor to Electrify America.
Yeah. The Panola Road Charger here in Georgia, like really right around the corner, no more than a quarter mile, is Georgia Power building, and right outside the building they have 2 electric chargers, stall chargers. I see Leafs going in and out of there all the time. Yep. Like it's usually right around the corner from the Tesla station. So Georgia Power does it all the time.
One of my favorite CHAdeMO chargers is actually run by a favorite just in terms of it actually performed the way I expected it to. It's actually run by a local co-op. It's like a power company, just like the one I have here, that's not run by a regular power company. They had 1 or 2 tritium chargers right there in their parking lot, and it was there were no superchargers around at the time for us, and it was right near a couple eateries, so we plugged in there and we went to the Mexican restaurant, got some tacos, and then we came back and then the car was ready, so we drove off. And it was free, but it didn't have to be.
But and the crazy thing is here also is, like you said, they put it near an eatery. That's money. That's foot traffic that's going to those businesses. And they're paying your bill for their lights. So that means they can afford to pay their bill for your lights that you're giving them because you're giving a small amount of juice to an electric vehicle. It's they don't have to worry about the bi-directional charging. They don't have to worry about people putting solar panels on our houses because, as we saw with the ice storm in Texas last year, these people still had their power. So if they still got power and you got somebody, your next door neighbor's old grandmother about to freeze, then what are you going to do? Invite them over so that they don't freeze. You're going to save so that they have the money to pay them later, and maybe they might switch over. It's less strength on the grid. It's stupidity at its finest.
Robert was talking about the chips. So yeah, they are going down 3 nanometers from 4 nanometers. Can I have solar roof, but you can't use the energy. It has to go back to the grid, so you get no benefits. Oh wow.
Wait, what? That's the regulations there? You can have solar, but you can't use your own solar. It has to go directly to the grid, and you still have to pay for power coming in.
Sounds like his town is like my mom's town, where they just don't got it right.
That's just terrible.
Because like Robert Llewellyn, he's got a limit on what he can do, so he's got like a small system on his roof, but he can use his power, and he's got a power wall. Wow.
And that's the crazy thing.
I wonder if you can go completely off grid there, if you're allowed to like.
Probably the same as here. They condemn your house. You don't have running electricity. No, but I do. Look at the lights; they're on.
I really don't get it.
David says it's that dangerous old sun power undercutting our honorable utility. You're right.
Here's a really weird thing. Not even like 10, 15 years ago, there was a whole swath of unused land coming from the outside area where the ranges are to Fort Stewart into the actual cantonment area, which is where all the houses and PX is. But in that little swath of what was unused, they slapped down like 100 plus odd half an acre worth of solar, just because, of course, they can't shut down if they lose power throughout the daggone state, because they can't have those problems. So they knew the difference of like, at least we got to maintain the main arms rooms, which always need to be have an alarm system to them. They at least knew they needed the
military.
Yeah,
they're very keen on energy independence. In fact, they've got units that can actually roll out a large flexible solar array. They can just drag it behind a piece of equipment, and they can power like a field base, or at least a field tent, because now you don't have to truck diesel. You know, you've got the lines that run back to when you're pushing in. You've got a chain behind you, but if they don't need to be hauling fuel back and forth, then they can be hauling other supplies, and the electric is silent, so generators, and it's an advantage to be energy independent.
Yeah, and at best, it's going to keep the arms room on, which in the 90s when I had to do that, when the power went out, everybody sitting in front of the arms room like this because the actual alarm system wasn't working. It's annoying, but you can save the soldiers' times if the power stays on, at least for that purpose.
So for the military, that they need to be always operationally ready, and they can't afford any interruptions or anything like that. So they want to be completely independent.
Yeah, that's another industry we get a lot of our modern conveniences from. Like this internet we're talking on right now, it came from the military.
Right,
the Humvees,
GPS, everything, everything. Right, everything starts with military. They get it all the technology first, and it trickles down. What's interesting? Oh, the other day I saw something really interesting. Our gas company here, that sells the natural gas or whatever, the gas company. I drove by their spot, and they have this humongous solar field. Like it's huge, this huge solar field, and I
They don't
thought
want
that
to pay
was
the
really
electricity bill.
interesting on their property, and I was like, wow, they got like acres and acres of solar. Like wow, like I didn't even realize they had that. So I'm like,
Yeah,
are they also a electric utility? Are they selling this to our electric company, or is it just because they need that
they need that. They
to
don't want to spend.
function
They don't
for
want to give it
what
to the
they do?
electric
So they
company.
use up so much electricity that they found that it was economically beneficial for them to have a humongous solar array.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
us to dig up the natural gas, we need more solar.
right. Well, when you can't raise your rates without going to the voters first, it's easier just to lower your costs.
Oh no,
And
but
what was another way to say?
our gas rates doubled this year in
Well, doesn't mean they
January.
didn't get it. I'm
So
just saying that while you have that constraint, it's easier to make your costs lower than it is to ask them for more money. But like you said, they can still ask for more money and get it.
yeah, they I think they're doing both. They're lowering
Right.
their costs and
We'll just
they're getting more money.
we'll pay for this later. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
We have all these capital costs that we have to spend money on, so we need to raise our rates. And
So
meanwhile,
there was
these
a
capital costs were to lower their overall cost by them
yeah.
adding all
Yeah,
that
for those
solar.
solar panels you just put in.
There's a old dump near us that has got a grocery store next to it, and we were at the grocery store, and Luna she noticed, my wife, she noticed a flame outside the dump, and I was like, what do you mean it's flame? It was raining, and sure enough, there was a methane fire that was just, I don't know if it was meant to be like it was a flare off or if it was that one of the methane vents had caught fire. I don't know what it was, but we didn't
Maybe they
stick
were just
around.
burning it off instead of just releasing it in the atmosphere. They just want to try to burn it off, like they think
Right.
that's
So that
better.
part was cleaner than letting it loose, but also at the same time, imagine if you put some sort of generator on that. You could
Yeah,
have some
imagine
clean
if you
power going for
capture that
years.
energy instead of just wasting that energy. Use it,
Exactly.
do something with it.
Use it
Yeah.
for steam, for Christ's sakes.
Right. And so this was a bit of bad news with a little bit of an update. There was a Tesla charger in California that wasn't yet open yet. So this is a V3 station, and you can see that with the tubing there for
For the
the
liquid
coolant.
cooling. Yep.
Yeah. We're assuming it was a copper thief. We haven't heard yet what happened for real. But look at how it was cut. And they cut every one of the 8 cables off and just left. I'm echoing in your Dan. So then
Say
there was
again?
I'm echoing on your computer.
Oh, okay.
I thought the update would be in this article, but I don't see it. So what they ended up doing was they put in one of those mobile monitoring stations like you sometimes see from the police at stores that will get a lot of theft, like a Walmart or hardware store, for instance. And so they've got it's not the one by the police. It's a similar concept where it's got a camera, a bunch of solar panels, and some batteries, and it's on a trailer, so it's completely mobile. And they of course replaced all the cables. I think it was like 2 days or a day after the article came out, so that was a fast response. But some folks said, well, maybe it's an anti-EV group. But if in the article they said that even the Tesla owners didn't know it was there, so it'd be kind of tough for an anti-EV group to track down a new station without a target. And
I don't
yeah,
think it was a group. I think it was just a
copper thieves.
copper thief.
Yeah,
There's a lot of copper thieves out there that they'll break into abandoned houses and stuff like that, steal all the copper piping and
yep.
different things like that, so they can try to sell copper. So it was probably just a copper thief said, "Hey, this
Is your
is
air conditioner?
this place where nobody's around because it wasn't open yet or
For
anything like
that
that.
area, though,
Oh, let me just go
that
ahead and
area
cut
is
all of
unique.
these things."
And then Dan did some sleuthing and found that it's not a bad area, but these
Yeah,
people
but
like it.
these
It's
thieves like to
nature.
travel.
Right, they travel, they
Thieves
quick.
will travel to the nicer areas to steal stuff
It's
from nicer
outside
areas.
of a nature park, for Christmas sakes. I'm like,
Right, but do you want to
what?
steal stuff in your own neighborhood where somebody can recognize you, or do you want to steal from the rich people across town?
I get
And
that. It's just an odd place to do. It's like anybody goes, yeah, you want to go out and get some nature and some copper? Like, it's a weird thing to see.
they're just after the money.
It's odd. It's weird. It's something I didn't expect. Not outside
So
of
now,
nature.
so now they have, so now they have a camera monitoring at that location. I'm actually a little surprised that Tesla hasn't implemented any type of camera system or monitoring already.
Right.
Because they already have power run there clearly because
Yeah.
it's their chargers. they already have like some type of internet connectivity because they monitor those charging stations to know if they're functioning, if they're down, if they need to be repaired or anything like that, or the usage of them and everything else. So if they're already somehow have some kind of connectivity and they have power, it's not hard. It's not a heavy lift to add a few cameras.
Exactly. And then David points out that these cables are like, what, 4 feet long at the most? And, well, thieves aren't smart. And Tesla actually, they minimize as much as they can from the cables from the station because they're trying to keep their costs down. And so they can up the voltage and keep the cables the same size, for instance. So, and then when they added the cooling, that made it so they could use even thinner conductors. So it's not
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like you would think that if they want to really steal copper, they would at least bare minimum if they're going to steal the cables, they'd steal them from a V2 supercharger instead of a
They
V3.
don't know. They just think, oh, it's bigger, got more copper in it.
Yeah, well,
But it's
one
thinner.
has a
It's
thicker
not bigger.
cable as opposed to a
Yeah.
thinner cable.
Yeah.
That part you can visually see.
Yeah.
We didn't-
So the
we didn't say
V3s
they
are
were
smaller,
smart now.
lighter. Yeah, you can tell it's thinner when you get to
We
it.
didn't say they were smart now. They think the whole thing's made of copper with extra the
Well,
thicker it is. So
It's a big old copper pipe with a
Right.
rubber insulator on the outside.
there's several more strands than the thinner ones. Let's go after those. So
It's a good point, Eddie. I know a guy who died from that, live copper. So that's the other thing is, I don't know if they did their research or if they got lucky because a friend of mine here from New Zealand, he pointed out that they very easily could. It was cold here. It wasn't cold in California, but they very well could have said, "Oh yeah, we were doing climate control on the cables to make sure they were lasting longer." So it's not a case of booby trapping because booby trapping is illegal, but they could have had live cables.
and whatever they cut it with could have just
A lot of people stealing copper. Yeah, like it's still
That's
a
very
thing.
common. Very common. It's a big thing. It's a problem.
it is. Quick funny story. There was an episode in The Wire where the junkies stole the copper from one site and they were trying to go to another construction site to sell it. And then the construction guy was like, "You're not getting the price that you're asking. I'm giving you a quarter of that because I know you stole it from another site. And I was missing mine from earlier than next time. So they knew they were buying it back at a fraction, but they know it might have been a different junkie that stole it from them, no matter how much they secured it. So it was one of those weird cases. I'm like, they just know, oh, well, we're going to lose it, but we might make up some of it later if they come back to sell it to us. But we know you did it. We just can't prove it.
Don't
Those
buy
weird
fenced
things
goods.
on copper.
The easiest way, just don't buy fenced goods. So,
Yeah, right.
again, with the being careful in how you drive, and there's that point I was pointing out that the charger, they called out the charger, but they usually won't. And here, they made sure to call out that it was a Tesla driver.
State Road 54.
But if it was any other
Another
car, they
deadly
would have
crash.
just said, "Oh yeah, driver dies after a high-speed
Fiery crash, yeah.
crash or whatever." They would have never actually called out the actual brand name of the vehicle, but because it's a Tesla,
Yep.
headline
And,
grabber.
and I don't understand why they did it for the charger. Either that's they just call them all out in that particular place, or if they felt the charger would get clicks just the way that they think the Tesla would get clicks.
Causing a huge mess up in Lutz. This is in Pasco County. All eastbound lanes of State Road 54 are closed at Livingston Road. Your alternate route, Collier Parkway, eventually becomes County Line Road.
That's in Lutz, and there was a picture of it. It was severely totaled. There was more to this article when I put it in the list.
And somebody asked the question, "Oh, well, was it on autopilot or whatever?"
That
And
was
it's
what it
like-
was. Yeah.
And it's like, no, it was definitely not on autopilot. Because
Autopilot doesn't like
not
to
over
work.
if you're
90
going
miles
at
an hour.
extreme high speeds, if you're going at like 100+ miles an hour or whatever, you're not on autopilot.
Exactly.
It doesn't do that.
And they did that. They like, oh, it wasn't immediately clear if autopilot was on. Like
It's immediately
are you
clear to
even-
me.
Right? Are you even sure that the car even had autopilot? There was another one that came up where we were like, I think it's in this one, and we
It's
said
like-
it wasn't immediately clear if autopilot was on. It was like a Rivian. Yeah, so I think it's in this one because it was a Rivian. So we'll get to that one in a minute. So speaking of Aptera, link in the description below if you're interested in a Aptera. We can both get a discount on ordering our Apteras. If you are in line in 2022 or for 2022, and you weren't part of the Paradigm program, then your car will now be coming in 2023 to 2024. So when I saw the news first come around, before Aptera sent me an email saying, "Hey, your Paradigm, your car's still coming on time," I was like, "Oh, sweet, another year to save for this thing." Now I'm like, "Oh, I got to make sure I find a way to pay for this car." And so one way to pay for it is if you use my referral code and you reserve yourself an Aptera for, was it $100? You get in line, you get a discount, I get a discount. Not a bad deal.
Everybody get a discount.
Exactly. So that's what that's about. And look at that, they have a square wheel.
I like that it's odd in that actual.
I wonder what their manufacturing process is of those.
So
teardrop shape and all that.
This is without the exterior skin, and they make them like a boat. They're fiberglass composite, and they just build them up like a boat. So this one's obviously missing the frunk and the hood and all that stuff. But what they're using this one for is to test the vehicle dynamics at the track. Did they have a picture of it with the skin on? Yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like with the skin on, if there's no button over the front. Yeah.
That's
all right, so
those are going to be interesting.
And no charging?
They're so efficient, and they have like
might not need charging. Yeah, so you can go 1,000 miles on a charge in the biggest battery, and with the most solar panels that you can get on it, because you can get options for battery size and how many solar panels you want. You can recharge 40 miles a day from the sun, and then if you've got a 1,000-mile pack, you just leave it out there, and you rarely have to. You would rarely have to charge it every year.
That's
if it's a commuter car.
Yeah, because most people's commutes are under 40 miles a day.
Exactly.
So if you can charge up to 40 miles a day, then you can basically recharge the amount that you're using every day. And then you don't necessarily have to drive that distance every single day. Most of the time, that's people's commute to work. So that's like 5 days a week or so. So then the other 2 days, it's still charging. So it can make up for whatever difference that if there's a little bit of a difference there.
Just imagine driving like across country and you get tired and decide like I want to take a nap, and then realize your car is still charging at the same time. Like, it's obscene.
And they do allow it. They do allow it to drive the wheels from the solar as well. Unlike other EVs with solar, they disconnect once you put in gear. This one doesn't have that problem. So at this point, though, you'd want to make sure not to park in the garage and not to park under the deck of a parking garage, because you want it to regenerate while you're at work.
And those are usually the empty spots all the time.
This is true. The top of the parking deck in the sun.
Yes. Yeah.
I literally had to do that a while ago just because it was the most open spot for my son to play with his remote control car while I went to an appointment. It's all the way out there. Security was like, "What are you doing up here?" But it was like this open space for him to play. And you were like, okay, but it was all sunlight. Chilly, but all sunlight. So, yeah.
It's true. So Launcher Space has selected SpaceX for multiple launches of orbit transfer services. So they're going to resell SpaceX seats and make a profit. So good on them.
They're reselling SpaceX seats?
Yeah. SpaceX has advertised that you can become a reseller. So basically all they have to do at that point is then they take this module from you, put it on the rocket, versus having to make their own. Not that SpaceX won't do this. SpaceX definitely does rideshare where they make their own launcher modules, but it's a lot easier to deal with one customer than 20.
Oh, so this is not like me buying a flight to outer space.
Not unless you want to stay there.
This is like sending something.
No, this is for like satellites and stuff.
Okay. I'm about to say, because there are services like that they can brokerage to put you on.
No, SpaceX. The only human flights they do right now are they've got the
ones to the space station.
The ones to the space station, and they've got the Dragon tourism flights, and then eventually they have USUC's moon mission, and then from there, Elon said that they have some more stuff on schedule, but they are leaving it to their customers to unveil what's going on rather than to steal their thunder, which I thought was pretty cool. But now I'm like, what's next? I'm excited.
Okay, but I still think you could create your own little satellite and be like, I want to see if I can get something for this and just afford to put it up there for some amount of money. Say a couple of buddies at MIT be like, okay, let's see if we can put our satellite in the air. That's
Welcome
kind
to
of
Musk.
efficient. That's kind of efficient and kind of cool now.
Yeah. So a while ago, we talked about this little camper that I didn't realize cost 55 grand. It's a teardrop trailer that's very well equipped, but a Tesla Model 3 owner took it out and was able to get 255 watt hours per mile at 55 miles an hour. And on this 60-degree day we had where I was doing the yoke video, my car was still averaging like 280 watt hours per mile, and so that car did better with a trailer than my Model X does by itself.
Okay, so
Under
that's
ideal conditions.
but that's ideal conditions. You're talking about like a 60-degree day, so you don't need, a bunch of heating and stuff.
Which was good because the air conditioner was broken.
I mean, that's great,
That's obscene.
but
So this is
they're
coming
also
from
doing
probably,
they're also doing 55 miles an hour.
yeah. So it
88
took them an hour
kilometers.
to do this round
They're
trip.
not. You know, they're keeping their speed. Very
Yeah.
tame for highway speeds.
However, on the Model X, if you go above 55 miles an hour with a U-Haul trailer, you have a significant range drop. So I would have been stuck at 55 anyway. And when I'm at 55 with the largest U-Haul trailer, I'm pulling almost 600 watt hours per mile. But it's also square. This thing is not square.
That
Right.
looks like the Jets, that stealth fighter.
Now, is that a solar panel on top? Is like what is that? Is that a window?
It could be, but I think that one is just a cover for the window. And so the U-Haul is square and it's a dual axle. And this is not square and it's got a single axle. So they ran for 55 miles, so basically an hour. And same consumption recorded by the Hyundai Kona EV at 70 miles an hour. Wow. Without a trailer, obviously. So let's see what this is. Okay, so this is just them showing their trip for proof, I guess. Oh, okay. Here's where they show us their energy.
It was 63 degrees outside, so they didn't need to use their climate control.
Right.
And looking at that screen, it looks like the climate control is off.
Yep. Well, that's exciting. So if you were already in the market for a Tesla travel trailer, that one's an option. If you got the scratch for it.
I like the one trailer that we saw that had
The battery?
its own motors in it. So it
Yeah.
actually helped. It had a bunch of solar on top, and it had its own battery pack, and it had its own motors inside of it. So it actually helps you push along.
Yeah.
And
And then you can go faster than 55.
yeah,
Yeah, I like that one. David says it looks like getting the trailer is like boarding a Dragon capsule. Exactly, because it's definitely a teardrop trailer. It's got some luxury features, like it's got USB charging and lights and a radio, and it actually has a shower, but it's an outdoor shower, and it doesn't have a toilet. Or actually, it might. I think there was an optional camper toilet, like the cassette, and then but you have to crawl into it, and you can put your shoes outside, or you can take them in with you. But everything inside is bed basically.
That's dope.
It's glamping, but it's still roughing it. And the Robert has a point. The speed limit for trailers here is 60 anyway. Good point. And there are places here where no matter what you're towing, the limit is 55. But it's becoming more and more rare as our speed limits.
that's pretty rare here, though.
Yeah.
Especially if you drive out west, where the speed limits on the road, those roads are like 80 anyway. Like
exactly, yeah. Our speed demons have influenced those regs.
We actually have some roads that have a minimum speed on the highway, so
yes.
like their minimum is 55.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
and then we have a few where the lower limit only applies to Class 8 trucks, so tractor trailers with their trailers as well.
That's true.
So Tesla Scope made a tweet, and in version 2021.44.30.12 and newer, speed bumps are now being visualized. So this is very much like we see in the beta program right now, where the car's like, hey, there's a speed bump, and then it proceeds to just rocket over it. There are some where it shows you a speed bump and it'll slow down, but it's so inconsistent. But at least you can see that the car sees that it's there. So maybe in the future, it'll do the right thing on all of them that it can see, not just some of them. And it does slow down significantly, but I still think it could slow down more. I find that the ones it slows for, it still takes them a little faster than I'm comfortable with. But not to the point where I feel I need to take over. It's just like, you could have done that another mile an hour slower too.
Well, what's interesting is that with my Model Y, I found that if I take a speed bump too slow,
Yeah.
I actually hear a scrape underneath, like it just barely scrapes the bottom of my car. But yet, if I take it a little bit faster, it doesn't scrape at all.
Maybe we've got that Model Y logic.
It's interesting. It's like that Model Y just kind of, I guess maybe there's a little bounce to it when it gets on, when the front wheels get on the other side or something. I don't know what it is to it.
Maybe it's got a little give and
But
complaint.
I actually have to take it a little slightly faster than I like to take them, because then that way I don't scrape.
Exactly. Oh, here's a picture of it. So this is definitely what I've been seeing in the beta. Tesla Adri is showing these folks.
Oh, it's showing them. Okay.
Situation. I like to. What do you see? Yeah. So now that's for everybody, not just for the chosen few who can drive real slow. Potholes, nope. Any new rollout on 10.10 looks like it paused again. I'm on 10.8.1. And this is what I was saying in my video with the yoke is, I was very glad I got to 10.9 because it's one of the better ones that I've ever had. And 10.8.1 and 10.8 were average for me. They weren't great, but they weren't terrible. And I'm glad I didn't get stuck on them like Z here. Yeah, so look out for speed bumps on your display, unless you're on a well, actually, if you're on an old version of beta, it was still in there. And let's see, Robert says,
Well,
Dad
I'm not
actually
on
got a
beta, so I'll keep an eye out for it. See if I.
There you go. Dad said Dad actually got a ticket for going too slow. He was doing 41 miles per hour. Yeah, you can get that here too.
Yep.
Usually they use it as an excuse to see if you're drunk rather than if you're actually going too slow.
Yeah, but then sometimes they'll actually write it.
Sometimes they will. Other times they'll be like, hey, don't do that again. Get a warning. But
Yep.
like Omar said, sometimes it's not worth risking it. You gotta have a really good reason for going slow like that, like your car's breaking down or something.
Now I have seen them just put up their little lights to make sure you can change it in time, just so that everybody else can slowly move around you without being too reckless. So I have seen them do that also. If you do have a tire or something, or you're trying to,
that's different. They're not gonna penalize you for driving
Oh
slowly
yeah.
on a flat tire.
Yeah,
Right.
sometimes
Yeah,
if
that's
you're about to break down, they'll just be like, "All right, you got this. We'll just stick around." Then they'll check you.
Yeah, that'd be a real jerk move right there.
yeah. They're not gonna write you for because you're having mechanical issues or something.
Now, if you had the flat tire before you get on the highway, yeah, they will. But All right, so BYD has unveiled a V2G capable Type A electric school bus for the U.S. And we've had a couple of local school bus manufacturers also doing vehicle to grid, which allows the school board, whoever's running the school buses, usually it's the county, but sometimes it's a private company. It allows them to recoup some of their investment back by allowing the school buses, because they're not running at lunchtime. That's when you need the most air conditioner. And it allows them to get some of their money back by allowing them to stabilize the grid with their batteries. So they actually make some money on the back end, which is pretty cool. So when it's not hauling kids around, it's also being a power station.
That's interesting.
This is the kind of stuff we need.
Especially if, like here, some of the buses stay near the schools just because it's easier that way on the weekends and when the kids are in school. But imagine those trailers when most schools had to expand now. Imagine you parking a bus beside that trailer and it's charging that trailer when the kids are not they're actively using the trailer, but the bus can actually go, hey, if something happens to the building, the kids in the trailer are still working on whatever their classes are. So
you've got all their numerous breaks and the summer break, so this is perfect.
It's perfectly really good to see.
Yep.
If
So
they get smart about using it.
I think Thomas and Bluebird were both in the V2G space as well. There's another one as well. Both
Now they
based
need
sort
to
of.
do is just put solar across the whole top of the bus as
Yes.
well, because I mean
With the
buses have a
little thing so it goes up like this.
surface area than a regular passenger car does. So you can get some solar out of that. That'd be great too.
BYD should
Yeah.
sell this in Texas. Texas has a weak grid that could use some backup. They did not reveal the capacity. Oh, that's the other thing. They're using iron phosphate. So it doesn't matter if you, or it doesn't hurt it if you charge it to full, and it doesn't hurt it if you if you discharge it to 0. That's not bad.
What Jim Dose said, yes, it hit 60. I had a test ride in the Thomas Electric. It can hit 60 if it wanted to. we were in the mall parking lot area when we got to the outside where he can actually pick up some speed. I mean, he obviously didn't pick up some speed, but yeah, it could easily make 60 if you wanted to.
Yeah. Joel is asking if we have something beeping in the background. I was in my car, and now in my house we hear the same sound. That's a good question.
I don't hear any beeping. Do you guys hear any beeping?
No. Anybody else on the stream hear any beeping? And does it show who's talking when it happens? Or do you hear the beeping now that we were just silent for a minute?
I hear a low thing going, but I can't tell where it's coming from. My ears are picking up from. It's a weird ring, but I don't think it's coming from us.
Andrew says no. It could be something YouTube is doing, and I hope they cut it out because that's not good. Robert says his dad drove a school bus. Yeah, it's cool stuff. It's a nice job.
They just got to be aware of what it is. I've talked to a school bus instructor, and they're like, "Yeah, propane gets 2 miles a gallon or 2 miles per, basically 2 miles per gallon." And I'm like, "What? How's efficient?" Like,
yeah, David doesn't hear it either.
Well, if you think about it, Dan, a school bus is a big, humongous box, right? It's not aerodynamic at all. They're heavy, so yeah, they're terrible fuel economy.
Even actual gas and the diesel was better than this. I was like, why would you buy a propane power and it's 2 miles per gallon? What sense does that make?
Yeah, propane is supposed to be better. At least cleaner, but not at 2 mpg. All right, so
yeah, right.
Nikki shared a tweet. Her reaction was a meme. OMG, facepalm. John Volker. Let's go ahead and make his tweet bigger, so there's no animation going on. Copy. Where's copy? Oh, okay, cool. Usually when I click on stuff, it opens in a new window, so you guys can't see it. So John says, Nissan, which pioneered the mass market EV and then lost its lead, gradually sunset the development of the combustion engines in all of its major markets, except the U.S. I agree, Nikki.
I'm not shocked. Why, you can't be shocked by this.
This is something I realized.
Because here in the U.S., we love our gas vehicles. Because
this is not what they promised us, though. They promised they were doing a VW and ending it all.
Nissan is literally the epitome of what's that thing? You had one direction. You had one simple task. Literally. And even the redesigned Leafs are really, really cool looking. Like, how do you not push
operated in-camp live V8s?
So, how do you not?
Congrats! Oh wow, this is a refresh Model X.
They said they had to do something with all the rest of their gas engines. So they said, you know what? When we tone it down for everywhere else, we're just gonna dump them all over here.
Sell them, sell them here.
Where people will still be willing to buy them.
And the crazy thing is, I have a buddy who is painfully paying attention to those gas prices because he migrates or commutes about an hour, and his job is on call a lot, going to different sites. So he's looking at it like, and I'm like, you ready for that electric? I can tell you more, because gas is atrocious, and that commute is about an hour, and he has to go to that site and various.
Wait a minute, pause, time out. What's that tweet say?
That's what I was about to say.
92% yield. Okay.
92% yield, including a test machine. Tesla has solved 4680 production. I repeat, Tesla has solved 4680 production, according to this Tesla account. That is incredible.
Well, we knew that was coming because Elon said that the Model Ys out of Giga Texas were going to start shipping with them. So
yeah, but we've also known Tesla to just go ahead with something that wasn't done yet, and wow, this is done.
yeah.
It's ready. That's incredible.
That's awesome.
Now, for our viewers that are not aware of the 4680 cells,
Yeah, go ahead.
what's the benefit of the 4180 cells? Because I'm sure somebody's watching like 4180 cells.
The
or
4680.
Yeah.
So the 4680 is a part of Battery Day's list of advances to make the batteries more powerful, cheaper, and to store more energy. And the 4680 allows you to use a bigger container, so you need less cells per car. And then it also includes the tabless construction, so that allows them to get the heat out faster, and it allows them to overcome the fact that the bigger batteries are usually harder for them to work with. So
Basically, it's a new form factor for the batteries that's going to allow them to be manufactured cheaper. They're going to be they're going to charge faster, and they're going to have more energy density. So overall, they're just better overall.
Remind you that song, Faster, Stronger.
So they play music in Tesla, so let's see if I can play this or not. Nope. A Model Y in the Chicago store had the Ryzen, and I'm 100% upgrading when it becomes available. I'm shocked it's so fast. So that's the other side of Tesla using the latest chips, is you get the benefit of most of them are faster than the old chips. So you get better power efficiency in most cases, and you get a speed boost. In addition to being cheaper because you're using the same stuff that the factory wants to make now rather than having them have to pay to keep an old system in place. That is much faster than my Atom chip. Especially the YouTube part. Man.
Just the acquisition of those chips in a time when chips are hard to come by.
Yeah. It says, "Oh, the irony! Advanced parking solutions," and he can't park. Very much like the thumbnail to this show. Priceless and amazing. Elon and his team. Toyota EVs are too good. We're gonna find a way to make them rubbish. Okay, so this was an article. This was an article I was gonna bring up later in the show, but let's do it now. So as we were saying about folks who can't handle change, some folks like it when cars jostle you around as they're going faster, and some folks like that the cars do other shaky bits. Like, so basically what happened here is Toyota has patented, I don't know how because this is a 60-year-old technology, a manual transmission on an EV. Like literally, the first EVs were manual transmissions. And anybody who converts a car over today, assuming they're not converting it automatic, converts over a manual transmission car and then sticks it in third, second, or fourth gear and just leaves it there. So Toyota has somehow patented that. But they called their clutch pedal a pseudo clutch pedal, and they called the gear shifter a pseudo gear shifter. So you don't have to worry about if you forget to shift. And while the car is doing the fake shake with the motor, it's also going to fake shake the gear shift as well.
Why?
It makes sense in an odd way.
No, it doesn't. It makes zero sense.
Listen, if you're an avid car
sense.
enthusiast and you're used to a manual, and you be like, "Oh, I need the responsiveness and X, Y, and Z," and then it goes, "Hey, this
you get better
you can drive
responsiveness out of an EV than you do out of a manual."
Right.
Yeah,
that was
immediate.
Toyota's excuse.
The response is immediate on an
Yes.
on an EV, and you're instead of downshifting, you can use regen. You literally just let off the go pedal. I mean, it just makes zero sense. It's not necessary. Totally zero sense.
Exactly. And so Toyota's excuse was that we, our customers, they missed the V6 experience and blah, 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 and other lies and tales from, but that goes back to what we were saying with our friend who can't let go of gas on the even though she drives an EV, she can't let go of gas in the kitchen. There's a certain mythology that's been pumped into us by the marketing departments for decades. And just like my neighbors who are running up and down this street just squealing tires and roaring engines for no reason, even though the car is making fake sounds inside the car for them already. It takes a minute to get people off of this stuff. So maybe,
You know what,
maybe
Dan?
this.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is for the people that just can't wrap their minds around the change, and for them to here you go. It's different, but it's the same. Here you go. It's what you're used to.
I'm hoping there's a button to turn all that crap off.
It has to be.
So Eddie says Nissan's having lots of production problems of their own. $1.69, pound 69 the other day at the pump, plus 20% VAT. Density, volume, and better pack strength as a floor component, absolutely. And then that was the other part, is you can then use them as part of your structural pack, which then allows you to remove components from the car and still make it stronger, lighter, and cheaper. Sure, model 22,000 pounds. For the Model 3 Performance is still for sale. That one's been on sale for like 3 weeks. I wonder if there's something wrong with it.
What's going on with that vehicle?
Yeah, because it's just been gone after a week. Europe is big on manuals, so yeah, that's another good point. Eddie brings up that just like with you put somebody in a plug-in hybrid and they learn that they don't want the gas to run anymore. You put them in a manual transmission and they get tired of shifting and losing to actual performance cars. They might want that. Oh, and if you do shift and it doesn't want to shift, it doesn't. So it's still an automatic.
Yeah, because I think the U.S.
It's a fake manual. It's actually an automatic
manual.
Okay.
Right. Robert says 62 years of changing gears. Yeah, I before I got my license, I learned to drive on a stick. And my Nissan pickup that I keep talking about, it's not that it was my oldest car, it's just that it was my least tech car. And it was a 5-speed. I like that little truck.
I had a manual Hyundai Elantra,
Yeah.
and that's the vehicle I learned how to drive manual. You know.
An 03 Dodge Neon,
So
bright yellow.
Dan's onto something. Here's this Gearhead article writer. I love a manual transmission. It's an excellent way to keep my brain engaged when I'm stuck in boring traffic, and a lot of fun on a spirited drive. Unfortunately, most Americans either disagree with me or just don't know how to use one. A little bit of both. As such, we're seeing the number of manuals on new cars dwindle, and that seems likely to continue as electric cars become more prevalent. And then somebody else pointed out, oh, but I want to save on gas. But manuals in America haven't been gas savers for over 10 years now, because they assume that if you know how to drive one, you want some performance, and they give you less fuel efficiency than a gas vehicle, and sometimes even less performance than the gas vehicle too, which is really
weird.
incredible.
Manual.
Well, no. Well, here's one of the main reasons why manuals are no longer gas savers compared to automatics. It's because the automatics have become so much better at the computer has become so much better at the shift points of when to shift and how to shift, and they gear the automatics to efficiency.
Yep.
So you're getting better fuel efficiency out of the automatics now than you are out of a manual when you're shifting, because you feel you're doing it by feeling, like you feel it, or you're looking at your actual RPMs and you're doing it. Either way, it's actually more efficient.
Then again, a lot of your gearheads love
the automatics.
Feel
I liked driving a manual. I thought they were fun and everything, but you know what? Giving it up, I don't miss it at all. And like if I'm stuck in boring traffic, that's what autopilot is for. I don't want my brain to be engaged.
I don't want to be rowing the gears in traffic.
I don't want to be engaged. I
hate it in traffic. It's the worst thing to have.
I didn't like it when I was stuck in traffic, and you definitely don't want it stuck in traffic on a hill. So
yes.
I wonder if it's gonna have that same. That's a good question.
Yeah, because on a hill, that's the worst when you have that rollback and you're trying to
balance
that out and not.
Oh, you know what? I wonder if they're going to do a pseudo clutch and make you have to pay to get your clutch changed out, like the actual clutch disc, not because we already talked about the pseudo clutch pedal. That sounds like another way to keep your service department busy. Oh, it looks like you need more blinker fluid in that clutch.
But people are still going to wreck. That's the weird thing. I don't get it. People are still going to wreck.
But the other part of why manual is less efficient nowadays is they don't have, because they are aiming for performance. They don't have that high overdrive gear at the end typically anymore. So in addition to the automatic being able to do everything by the numbers, by the sensors, even if you were as good as the computer at shifting, you just don't have that last gear to shift into for highway cruising. And Eddie says never drove a manual and never will. Yeah, there's no point to bother with it now. I'll probably still teach a kid how to do that, but you'd have to find a car to teach him in first. Yeah, because like in Robert's area, if you don't come to your test in a manual, you don't get certified to drive a manual. So you got to take the test again if you ever buy a manual car. The engine's designed to work with the automatic. Yeah, exactly. That's the other part, is the transmission and engine talk to each other in automatic cars these days. With the manual car, it's designed to work with an automatic engine. Oh, yeah, that's true. And they just adapt it over, and they take out a lot of features too when they do it. Yeah. All right, so let's.
Yeah, once upon a time, manuals were the standard transmission, and the automatic was extra. Now
So
it's
we
the
call them
reverse.
standard.
Right, but it's reversed now. So
It is. It totally is.
Yeah, and it's weird. Only in America did the automatics are really, really still popular here.
what's funny is, and it's so true. A lot of Americans don't know how to drive manuals, and so like I know some people that are like, oh yeah, this is my my anti-theft device right here.
Yeah,
This
they do.
manual gear shifter.
And they say it's a joke, but it actually does work.
It does.
Yeah.
Somebody used to put it in drive and go, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what?" But I
Well,
do get
having Tesla works too, because now they can't. You put it in pin to drive, you're
Yeah,
golden.
my anti-theft device is two-factor authentication.
There was a guy who found a way around the pin to drive and posted it online, and then immediately took it down because he realized that now that he's published it online, he doesn't qualify for the bug bounty program. Because Tesla, the only requirement for them, other than you show them how to work what it is you found, is that you share it to them first so they can fix it. So
So did they fix it?
he took it down. I don't know if that means they fixed it yet or not, but this is
Yeah,
Tesla. So it's
I'm
gonna be
wondering
fixed.
if they fixed it in a
They will. They
you
will.
know,
Yeah.
because I had a software update the other day. I don't know, is it fixed?
Right. So the moral of that story, the nugget to learn is that if you find something wrong with the car, you need to get it to them first, get your pay, and then after they fix it, they'll let you share your exact method with the world. So document everything, record it, screenshots, pictures, everything, but don't share it. Give it to them, let them do their thing. Then they still let you have your day. Like there was a guy who discovered how to hack the keys on the Tesla, and he gave it to them. Then, as they were fixing it, he showed what it looked like. And then, after they were done fixing it, he then showed you exactly how he hacked the keys. Like, here's the code. Here's what I did. Here's why I did it. Here's how I analyzed it. So they're not trying to gag you. They just want to make sure that the customers are safe before they let you go wild.
Thank you for finding that. We fixed it already, though.
No, they paid him too. So it's not like you.
No, I'm saying by the time it gets public.
Right.
Like
But that's the thing. I mean, if you're going to put something like that out to the public,
You're not trying to teach them how
you
to
may
steal.
not be malicious, but there's
Right.
malicious actors that would take that information and be malicious with it.
Yeah.
So
by
this
the
way,
time
if you report it to them and they can already fix it, then by the
time you
time
published it, yeah.
it becomes public knowledge and somebody tries to be malicious with it, up too late, it's already fixed.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Just like David saying, it's a white hat style bug reporting.
Exactly.
So then I've got an update to that story we were talking about. I have a picture of that station in California. You can see down below, it's got battery boxes, processing. You got your cameras, loudspeaker, 3 or 6 solar panels. And
That's
one more down
interesting
below.
because usually that's like in an enclosed trailer, like the
Right.
part underneath is usually enclosed with a locked, thing and everything. So
Watch somebody
so
steal
people
this
can't-
copper.
People can't. Well, it's not just about people stealing copper, but now
No, I said watch
anybody
somebody steal
can
this
get
copper.
to
Yeah,
it,
anybody can mess with it. Yeah.
mess with it, and disable it. They can disconnect those batteries and stuff to it or whatever. They
Right.
can do
It
stuff
looks like
to
you
it.
have to unlock the boxes, or like you said, clip these cables.
Okay, if they're already cutting copper cables from the supercharger, you think they can't clip those cables?
Well, these will be live, but I don't know if they're going to be live enough to hurt you.
Probably not.
Yeah. And then I noticed they put a boot on the trailer so you don't try to drive it away.
You don't steal it. Steal the trailer. Yeah, I think that design could have gone better because like the trailers that I've seen like in like Walmart parking lot stuff like that,
Yeah,
that whole part is encased and
exactly.
enclosed.
The little minor theft deterrent. The other thing I notice here is that they have blocked their own station. Come on, Tesla, because this is a nose-in design. So this is the side that your charge port is on. You're gonna drive in here and put it in the driver's side.
Yeah, why did they put that partially in that space? Like,
And I'm not just
that
talking the
should've-
wheel. The panel is fully using the space.
but even the wheel is beyond the line. Like
I started with the wheel, and then I noticed
whoever
the panel
dropped
is
it off,
fully, yeah,
like what were they thinking?
they weren't. And on top of this, it's got a boot on it, so it's not like you can move it out of the space.
Wait, is that a barbed wire fence behind it?
Yes.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so how good is this area, Dan? They got barbed wire fences.
Right.
Dan was assuring us it's a nice, rich neighborhood.
It's a nice neighborhood with barbed wire fencing.
Razor wire. All right, so next up, this one's not so good news, but good news at the same time. The Tesla and the EV sector's growth is driving up lithium, cobalt, and nickel prices. So, you have a good point there, David. Maybe a Model 3 fits, but definitely not a Model X.
Yeah, you can slide a 3 under there.
Yeah. I don't know about a Model Y even, because it's a little taller too.
That's a little taller. That might be a too tight of a
Stretch.
squeeze.
Yeah, you get a Roadster in there, but they can't supercharge.
Until the new one comes out.
Right, but then it's gonna be bigger too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you were an investor and you saw what was going on with EVs, you would have seen this. You're going to need to make them, and you need parts to make them. So, that's the good part about Tesla going low cobalt is that they get rid of some of this problem, but cobalt makes for a very we know how to make a cobalt battery, so this will be a problem for a while because what you already know how to make is going to be cheaper than the new stuff. All right, and then the drone army got a little too close. They buzzed somebody. They did a flyby, and they got some more pictures of the Cybertruck. Look at that. Somebody, I think it was Sawyer, said that it looked like one of the sail wings was open, which I thought was really cool because I'm looking forward to using the sail.
That's what I was looking. I'm like looking at that, like wondering, like, what am I looking at exactly right here? Okay.
Yeah. And then based on what they're doing on the ground, it looks like they're calibrating cameras. Right here's a lot cleaner shot of that. This drone pilot in particular apologized to the community. Folks that felt that his apology was insincere, but he said that he's not going to fly this low in the future. He said, I got excited and it got carried away and went down too far. And folks didn't believe that, but I have a feeling that he won't be releasing any photos this close unless he's got a zoom lens on his next drone.
Yeah, just put a zoom lens on it.
Yep. All right, so let's see if I can open this a little bigger. So I'm gonna look at that dashboard like we saw in Sawyer's indoor tweet. Whoa, yeah, I can make it bigger. Yeah, there's definitely something going on with this dash. I hope there's a screen in there. Looks like they're testing out the view for the cameras. There's the okay, maybe. Yeah, that sail window's definitely got something going. The sail wing has definitely got something going on with it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what it looked like they put something over it though. It's like some
Right, because
kind
they
of
want us to
tarp
see
or
the
something.
hinge or it open. Because they know that they got people watching them 24/7.
Right.
All right, so and then earlier I talked about how Tesla with the chips managed to save some in China. The Yahoo Finances and CNBC are accusing them of cutting a steering component from some cars to help deal with chip shortage. And then other people were freaking out, saying, "Oh my goodness, are they going to put it back if I buy FSD?" Yes, if you buy FSD, they're going to put it back. And what about safety? And Tesla's explanation is that as well as another point that was brought up is that as you go on, you might have realized that you over-engineered the product, and you can start deleting chips. And we've seen Tesla and other manufacturers of all sorts of things remove chips as they go on. Nickel is probably the worst for Tesla. I agree. AA battery is rechargeable here up to 10 pounds. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they're pretty expensive here too. I think like $6 to $8. Ultrasonic sensor rings. That's a very good point. I didn't even think of them. And they've got to have them because that's the whole part of the sensing package on the Tesla. And Elon didn't say those were going away. They didn't turn them off on my car. They're still there. Robert's cooking what sounds like a tasty dinner. So Hyundai and Kia are giving some very familiar sounding instructions to some they gave a couple years ago. They're suggesting you park outside. Why would they suggest you park outside away from your building, perhaps?
That sounds familiar. Can we say Chevy Bolt?
Well, no, because remember, Hyundai and Kia were the first cars that had this problem before the Chevy Bolt. But thankfully, these are just gas cars. But it's the same problem. There's a fire risk, and they've recalled 485,000 cars because the gas batteries can just go.
No, wait a minute. This doesn't happen with gas cars. Stop it. There's no fire risk from any type of gas.
You don't have an
That's
engine creating a
impossible.
spark for an explosion to move the pistons.
You're not just riding around with a bunch of flammable liquid.
Right. And
Fumes.
so, Patrick, he's told us about a study that determined that hybrids catch fire a lot more often than either a pure gas or pure electric vehicle. And
There's more to go wrong. You have both.
more
You
to
have
go wrong.
every component from both
That's
gas
right.
and electric. So now you have more stuff that can go wrong.
Now, while you playing, I did talk to a lady at the DMV redoing some tags, and she was like, she had a friend of theirs have issues with the battery on a Fusion Hybrid 01. No, later 19, because the battery pack system. And it was a tragic story because it swarmed off of everything electric.
Oh.
But I was like, no, you should have been took it back and had a buyback. That's a 1 in a million case for the battery issue, but they had financed a terribly wrong way, so they were still owing on the actual loan itself, which is terrible on top of that.
Yeah. All right, so next up we've got... This one is a weird format because it was really made for a phone, but I still saved it anyway. This one is coming from Inside EVs, and wow, the format is not suited for my shrinking the page down. I guess it was okay. Electric cars are now cheaper than gas car. A new analysis from Atlas Public Policy, as reported by Fast Company, found that popular electric cars and trucks are now cheaper than their combustion counterparts. There's nothing I can do to make this thing format better, is there?
No.
One of the biggest discoveries was that the electric version of the F-150, the most popular vehicle in the country, the F-150 Lightning, was 17% more profitable than running on its own gas. This is what we've been saying for decades. Or, no, not decades. Years. It's been 1 decade that's been electric. Exactly, David. Yeah, we've been telling them this. Or at least the last 3 years. How did they must have flipped this picture, because there's no way you can get a Tesla to charge on the right side. Yeah, they did. Look at the words on this cable backwards.
It's flipped.
They took the picture and just put it up. Oh, it's backwards.
It's mirrored. That picture is mirrored. Yeah, it's flipped.
Because even in right-hand drive countries, you charge on the left side of that Tesla. As an added bonus, you can use an electric pickup as an emergency energy source for your home in the event of power failure. We've been talking about that as well. If you buy a vehicle, it's hard to know what the total cost of a car's life will be. Not so much with electric. You know exactly what it's going to be. especially if you have solar. So it's a better part of providing data to help people think through that decision, then challenge that current belief that electric cars are more expensive. Yeah, I mean, they could be more expensive at purchase, and very soon that's not going to be the case, because we see like the F-150, the Cybertruck, the $25,000 equivalent Tesla, as well as all these affordable electric cars that are coming out, like the ones that aren't made to be the fastest car at the stoplight, like what I keep calling the electric Camry until Toyota does something. The BZX could be it, but the ID4 is it's meant to be practical. It's not made to be a speed demon.
That handle trips me out. It looked like a little cat on the last panel. It's like
it's a CCS connection.
It's just funny the way it looks.
Yeah. A survey examines specific vehicles. They cost over 8 years. EVs typically have fewer running parts. We know this. The price of electric alternatives will be dropping by 15% in. Yeah, and that's the other thing I was talking about with the mainstream cars. There's another one they flipped. Why did they flip all the Teslas around? I guess to make them line up with the gas cars, or not the gas cars, but the legacy cars. And there we go.
Once the news gets out that it's cheaper over time, the ownership is when it's going to really spike as far as new car sales. Maybe, and if they can understand how efficient the used car market be, say you're a 50 range Bolt, which they were like, we don't need that. I was like, but you do have a college kid. You don't want to just run amok, don't you? Like, if they've run away, they can only go so far to a charger, and then you find them there.
And so, David Burke brings up a good point here. The gas prices have been rising. The thing about gas is there's a lot of volatility in that market. So, those prices fluctuate crazy at any given time. Whereas with electricity, it's pretty much the same. You know what the cost is going to be, and you know what it is, and it pretty much stays. And of course, powering your vehicle off of electric is a lot cheaper than gas.
Exactly. And then Robert points out the Corsa EV and the Astra EV are more affordable. So then our next one we alluded to earlier. This one is a Reddit post because SpaceX has trouble with their links, apparently. A geomagnetic storm wipes out 40 Starlink satellites. Yes. So what happened here is they launched these satellites on February 3rd. And of the full launch that made it, only 49 of the Starlink satellites got caught in this geomagnetic storm, which what it did was it warmed up the atmosphere, which then made it so that these craft, instead of running in a thinner part of the atmosphere while they do their checks, they were now running in a very thick part of the atmosphere. And so they commanded them to run edge on so they would have less drag. But the problem is that it lasted longer than anticipated, and they were not able to then tell the satellites to raise up, because in order to do that they had to turn, which would have made it even worse. So 49 of them were still in testing and did not make it out. But the good thing is they're going to burn up completely, and
you're going to send 28 more up.
Well, there's that, but they run them low on purpose so that if they fail, they clear out their orbit quickly, and then they can be replaced, because these are consumable satellites, basically. So this guy points out they've known about this storm since January 31st. There's a weather article to it. They forgot to add checking for this as a space weather violation. They'll probably add a check in for future launches. Interestingly, if they had launched the previous day, the prediction says the storm would have been even stronger. So I guess even more satellites would have been lost. Yeah, that's a good point. And this guy says, how do you forget to add in checking? And he points out that people don't check for stuff they hadn't bit them in the butt before. It's true.
And then they were getting kind of not reckless, but kind of sure of themselves. It's like, yeah, just throw them up once a week before you even know we're doing it. And it was like, what happened?
Right. So this guy suggests they didn't forget, but perhaps, like you said, they didn't give it enough of a value, and so they said, "Oh, it's no problem," and then it was a big problem.
It's not a problem until it's a problem.
Right. It was expensive.
Or as he likes to say, lots of lovely data.
Yeah. Oh, this is true. Not to mention knowing the speed of satellites and how quickly they reduce their speed and altitude across 40 data points would be some sort of science Christmas present for people studying the shape and density of the upper atmosphere during these storms. Oh, yes, that's true. So they could have made up that some of that loss by selling the analysis,
Yeah, like
or
the
giving
pigeon.
it if they want.
Yeah. With a pigeon suicide rocket booster just was like, oh, there's a life form, and threw itself into the water. So, you know.
Oh no, that was. I don't think the pigeons had anything to do with it.
I don't think
It's
that
one
was
of
the
my
case.
favorites.
It wasn't
Remember.
the seagulls.
Once I figured out which one you were talking about, I got you. No,
Yeah. The seagulls was like, oh, life form.
It did look like it. I was like, man, did that thing just ditch for some seagulls?
It did look like it sacrificed itself for seagulls, but I don't think that was the case.
Still one of my favorite launches. Relaunch.
All right, so like I said, I think Ford deserves this awards that GM keeps winning because they've already started shipping the 2022 e-Transit vans to U.S. customers. With more than 10,000 orders in the bank, Ford's already working to increase production. So they're increasing production on the e-Transit, they're increasing production on the F-150 Lightning, increasing production on the Mustang Mach-E.
But GM's going to be number one.
Somehow.
They're even getting beat out by Ford over here, but they're going to be number one.
Right, and that's very affordable for a commercial vehicle. $43,000, excluding destination. And I'm sure you can get it for cheaper if you go in your fleet plan, you order 10 of these things. Because, the dealers love to get a package deal. Let's see what this assembly video looks like. It's coming from Ford. Factories are loud, so I'm going to mute that. All right, so what was he doing here? Just putting it together?
Look, there's a worker putting it actually together.
I would hope so in the factory.
Robots. Still jobs there.
Yeah.
Crazies.
Painting it.
Ooh, that looks good.
Assembling the pack. Assembling the pack. So I still see some of that stuff that Sandy was complaining about with all the extra coolant lines and stuff that they could probably trim down. There's the mating procedure where they're putting in the battery to the vehicle, putting on the wheels. Oh, okay. The camera is on the dash as they install it. I was like, did they just hit the dash with the door? They hit the door with the dash. It's clean. Why even peel it? You got to peel it when it gets to the store. And then they do the testing right there. Nice. So congratulations to Ford.
Yeah. That's a pretty sweet deal. Drag your costs down and your last mile transit will be faster.
So Robert says, wish they'd bring back the Cavalier. I'm guessing your guys' Cavalier was better than ours because ours was a garbage entry car.
I had one.
I sold a couple of them.
It was garbage.
Right. David says, guess National Centers for Environmental Protection will add Space Weather Protection Center to NASA sources. Hopefully so. And what about bankruptcy not paying the loan back? So Ford hasn't gone bankrupt, and they also haven't paid back their loan. I think Nissan did, and we know Tesla did early with interest. So obviously, I'm not condoning not paying your bills, but they're doing okay on the electric front. That's all I'm saying there. And Ford went completely bankrupt, or not Ford. General Motors went completely bankrupt, as you said. So
GM went bankrupt. Yeah, Ford didn't pay their loans back.
But they didn't go bankrupt. They just didn't pay the loans back.
Yeah, they took a loan and didn't pay it back. I mean,
right.
We can avoid bankruptcy if you give us free money.
Right.
Forget about it.
And this one was interesting to me because I've seen Jeep bicycles before, and I may have seen a Jeep scooter, but I've never seen a Jeep electric scooter before. I mean, mainly because this is new, but I would have never even considered such a thing. That's interesting. And they partnered with Razor, so they're already a scooter manufacturer, and it looks fun.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Look at them tires, boy.
Well, it's Jeep. You want to go off road, right?
Those are awesome.
Trail rated.
You gotta go off road on the Jeep.
Exactly.
Even if it's a scooter.
That's sweet. We gotta get to the car.
Hiking trail in a mountain on a Jeep scooter, electric scooter.
Oh, that's
scooter.
that's those houses where you have a gravel parking lot. Your kids still want to go somewhere. I'm
with David. That doesn't sound like it's something that's conducive to balance. All right, so Robert's got a Cavalier video he wants us to look at. Let's see what we got here. Oh, it's not very long. All right, so this is the Cavalier they had over for him. Share screen. And some ads, so we might be okay with music, maybe. Nope. It looks a little bit like our Cavalier, but it looks
like the
better.
same. Yeah, it looks close to the same thing that we had.
Very close.
Wait, it was a 4x4?
Really? See, like I said, I imagine
it wasn't a 4x4 here. Ours was front wheel drive.
Yep. And not as nimble as that. And you definitely
you definitely wasn't doing that.
Yeah. All right. Wait a minute.
What? Wait, what?
Unless there's a covered bridge, like a bridge that's just under the water there. Wait a minute. Yeah, they are. Is it all scooters or electric scooters are illegal there? Electric scooters are definitely illegal there. But e-bikes are not, which is interesting.
Wait, scooters are illegal where?
In the UK.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Those type of scooters, like the one we just showed?
Exactly like those. Some kind of obscure law, yeah. Texans are turning to solar and batteries to protect their homes against power outages. I think Dan mentioned that the Texas earlier in the show.
Oh, well, after that big outage that they had from that freeze over. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was Dan during the school bus segment. And, yeah. So, I mean, after you get bit, I mean, who's not going to, if you can afford to, who's not going to do some self-insurance there?
But like you said earlier, most people don't, account for stuff until they get bit for it, and then they want to take action and prevent themselves from getting bit again.
Exactly. Sometimes it works out for the better, and other times it means that you actually are afraid of stuff that's not as big of a deal as we think it is. Especially parents tend to do that. They, I got to protect my baby from everything. All right, so got a couple articles I'm cleaning up here real quick.
Dan, are you on mute? Because I see your mouth moving.
Yeah, Dan is talking on mute. Okay. Here we go. Got them all loaded. Let's start with a video. This is an ad from GM.
Oh, the leader in the EV sale.
Yes, Mary Led.
Speaking of ads, I wonder what these Super Bowl ads are going to look like. I haven't previewed
I was just going to say
that they already put out ahead of time, but I remember last year during the Super Bowl they had
the big game.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the big game. They had a lot of EV ads last year.
Yes, they did.
And I wonder if this year, if they're going to do the same thing and have a ton of EV ads this year. I'm looking forward to it.
That'd be definitely something cool to cover next week.
I'm really looking forward to that.
All right, so the one I actually pulled up was the 30-second spot. So let's pull up the full spot.
Ladies and gentlemen, our takeover of General Motors is complete.
Dr. Evil, we can now use GM's Ultium platform to power our whole operation.
Now we can reduce tailpipe emissions.
I'm sorry. Am I no longer Dr. Evil? I'm Dr. Good now? I didn't get the meme.
Climate change is arguably the #1 threat to the world now.
Dr. Evil, you are now the #2 threat to the world.
I refuse to be number...
Like Elon, I refuse to be number 2.
number 2.
We have to help the planet.
Oh, please, cheer.
For my son.
Your son? I shall name him... Baby Me.
No, his name is Kyle. Ow!
You must help save the world first.
Then you can take over the world.
Okay, Frau, how about you let me do the business, all right? Hold on, I've got it. I will help save the world first, then take over the world.
She literally just said that.
Scott, you just don't get it, do you?
What? What don't I get?
You don't get it.
Oh, we're right back.
And you're never gonna get it.
You can't draw me into these little... You act like a child.
Here it is. You don't get
I
it.
am an adult. You can't push my buttons anymore.
We'll reduce our carbon footprint.
Whatever. Okay, let's go. We're going all electric.
Everybody in!
Not you, Scott. One day you're gonna run the company, baby me.
Evie. He's actually evil.
Right. I thought it was
Chaos
cute.
entertainment.
And they did bring up some good points. So like even if your goal is to be evil, you know, if you want a dominion over something, you got to make sure that it still exists. So
Right.
even they
You're
should
the
know
number
their
2 threat on Earth. I refuse to be.
Right.
I will save it, then take it over.
I've been catching up on my Dragon Ball. It's very much like King Piccolo. You know, I refuse to be number 2.
But you know what? But it does make a good point. It's like, you know, you want to rule the world and take over the world. Guess what? The world still has to exist.
That line killed me the moment it was like, well, you're the number 2, and you can't rule number 1 if it's your there's no world for you to conquer. Okay. I lost it at that moment. That was interesting fun though. A good spin on it.
That was a fun one. Yeah.
So then there were a couple of articles about how schools in Flint and Michigan have clean drinking water again, thanks to the Elon Musk Foundation. They already sent filters over to Flint immediately when all this was going down. But
yeah, a few people.
Yeah, that was years ago. But now what happened is they you know, it takes time to actually replace pipes. That's a municipal function. You can't just go replace pipes as a private company in the city. So they're finally getting clean water in the schools thanks to the donation from the Musk Foundation.
Yeah.
Andrew says that in the Super Bowl tonight, Kia have an ad with a robot duck. It's kind of cool.
Well, that's going to be fun to cover next week. All the ads.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
If there's anything like that Dr. Evil one, I'm gonna enjoy it.
Oh, E-Muscle apparently didn't affect RAM. RAM's fully electric RAM 1500 development is working from the inside out. I think that's a good place to start since you know trucks are for work.
Well, not only that, the outside part is the easy part.
Right. Especially if you've been making cars for 100 years.
Exactly. They can they can put the same outer shell that they've been using if they want. It doesn't matter.
That's what Ford's doing.
The inside is the important part.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say about that one. And then our friend Wayne has an article about Hyundai Kia. Hyundai brings a clean, affordable solar energy directly to their customers. So very much like we saw with the Ford Lightning, you can power a small home from your, I do mean like a tiny home, from your Ioniq 5 or Kia EV6 or the Genesis GV40, whatever it is, the Genesis 40. Yeah, so that's cool.
It's bi-directional. It works.
Mm-hmm. And then Reuters.
I hope the
had an
Cybertruck's going to have that.
Oh, you know it. It was one of the first things that Musk said okay to on the crowdsourcing. GM plans a 6. Well, he didn't say like vehicle to grid. It's going to have a 240 50 amp outlet, which still does the job, but it's a lot more simple.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's not like the Ford F-150 Lightning.
Charger.
It's not like what they're doing, you know. But
it's for a customer, it's the same thing, except that now you're plugging in 2 cables instead of 1. GM plans a 6-fold increase in 2022 electric trucks SUV production, according to sources, says Reuters. That's good. My question at the time, I was kind of a jerk about it. I said, is that 6x times the 28 or 6x times what they promised already? I can be bad.
It's terrible.
That was a very not nice thing to say to them.
the petty level.
All right, so Yale's School of the Environment has found that EVs provide lower carbon emissions through additional channels. And so they go into detail about how the knock-on effects of having an EV can further reduce the environmental aspect than just driving the car and using electricity. For things like, using less brakes means less brake dust, which means less brake production, etc., etc. So let's click this.
Right, less actual parts in the vehicle,
Exactly.
so there's less parts to replace and less parts to make due to making the car and then replacing those parts.
Exactly. I think I closed the wrong one. No, I didn't. Okay, that worked out. Oh, I see what happened. It was an Instagram link. I was afraid it was a Facebook link, and I wanted to get it up before anybody messaged me. So this is on Instagram. This guy is one of the first Hummer deliveries. We were talking about, were they engineering samples or were they cars for sale that they sold there, right? And here it is. Let's take a look. This is a huge truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that thing's humongous. It's like the H1. Holy crap, is that?
Right. Because the Model X is not a small.
I know how big the Model X is. And look
the Model X
how
usually
that
does
thing
this to
just
other cars.
That makes the Model X look like a Model 3.
Right. That's what the Model X usually does to every other car on the road.
That thing is huge.
Right. Park this next to Model 3 and see what happens.
But that X can still open its doors.
I wonder what their energy consumption is on that. Like how many watts per mile? That
I don't think it was particularly efficient. It's a Hummer.
It's definitely not efficient.
Gas or electric's not efficient.
Right. I mean, it's more efficient than
it's more efficient than a gas version.
Yes.
But...
yeah.
Compared to its electric counterparts.
Oh wait, look, what is that park next to? Is that a
Escalade?
Is Escalade?
Yeah, it makes the Escalade look small.
I'm the bigger brother. No, I'm the bigger brother.
The Rivian's bigger than on it than I thought. The Rivian's not a big truck by any means. It's like a Land Rover, Range Rover size. I guess he don't have any more pictures of it next to stuff. Oh wow! Even far away, it looks like it sizes up to the Hertz truck. Well, there we go.
Well, that gives me a good comparison when they put it beside the
Escalade.
Yeah,
I think putting it next to the Escalade is a good size comparison.
Because you see more of those. All right, so then I was talking about Tesla recalls earlier. Here's some not so good news for those of you who followed my trick to get your speaker, or already had a speaker, or were able to get Tesla to get you a speaker. I'm echoing again.
I have a speaker.
We're talking about the pedestrian warning speaker on the Tesla. So there's been a recall of up to... they don't have the number on it anymore. It used to tell you how many there were. What if I click on it? Does that help? There we go. Tesla Inc. Let's share the screen.
They pretty much recalled what all of the Teslas that had the speaker.
Pretty much. Potential number of units affected is 578,607. But some of the cars in that range actually were never sold with the speaker because it wasn't legally required at the time.
Mm.
So, certain 2020 to 2022 S, X, and Y, and 2017 to 2022 Model 3. So that's what I'm saying right there. Is the 27 Model 3 didn't get the speaker until it was legally required.
Yeah, so 17 wouldn't have had it.
It would have been 18 and 19. But I think that right there, why the 17s are included is you can add the speaker. And so if you added the speaker on your 17 Model 3...
Then it's affected, right.
I don't think you could go back that far, because you had to have the wiring harness for it to work.
Yeah, but you know what? This recall, can we really call it a recall when it's actually just a software over-the-air software update?
Right, and that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Is like, we need to redefine what we consider to be a true blue recall.
Because a recall, in my opinion, should be you're calling all the vehicles in to be
Touched.
fixed in some way, right? So
Yeah.
that's something physical, like the rear cameras on the Model 3s,
Exactly.
for the trunk issue that they had. Those had to physically come in for a physical thing. That's a recall.
Be inspected, yeah.
In over-the-air update,
like a mandatory patch.
That's just a software patch. It's like like any other, like, I mean, are they recalling my cell phone every time I get software updates on it that
you
gives
get
me
12
some kind of
recalls a year,
security
baby.
bug fix or something? Like
they recall the PlayStation 5.
You get 12 recalls a year. So maybe like mandatory patch or some other legal definition verbiage we need for that. But I'm echoing again, Dan. But basically, what this means is that when you're in drive, you can't be playing your boombox sounds anymore. So they're gonna, in your next update, they're gonna disable the ability to be in drive with the boombox doing its thing. So, ooh, big deal. I mean, it's annoying, and the fact that we even need the noisemakers is dubious. But now you get all these sensationalist news places that get to breathlessly declare, "Oh, Tesla's had 8 recalls in the last 4 weeks," and like really, they had 2 recalls. They had 8 legal recalls, but they had 2 that actually needed the cars to come in. But they made it sound like the whole fleet had to come in 8 times in the last month.
Yeah.
Might I add, I haven't had to come in at all with my car.
Right.
And my car did get one. It is subjected to these recalls
Mine
as
too.
well, but they're
Mine
just
was the
over
rolling
the
stops and the seatbelts.
Mine is this boombox.
Boombox. Yep.
Whatever. Although that does make me kind of sad because this particular one is pretty stupid because it's like, oh, we're recalling the vehicles to stop you from being able to play your own sound instead of the pre-programmed sound.
Well, actually, it was worse than that. They never played a sound going forward. So now you were actually helping them.
You're right. Mine only played a sound in reverse. It wasn't playing a sound going forward.
Right.
But now, instead of playing my own sounds, I can't play the sounds unless I'm in park or whatever. So they're nerfing the boombox feature, which to me is dumb because it's like, okay, so instead of making more noise, that you claim that these cars are so quiet they should make noise because people aren't going to be aware that they're there. We're going to be running over people left and right. By the way, it's not even an issue because how many people are getting ran over by EVs every day just in parking lots or whatever? It's just not a thing. But
and if you run over blind people or deaf people, you're at fault.
You're at fault because you're driving the car. If you're running people over, you're.
That's crazy. Insert me.
It's such a head slap moment there. It's just that is. I don't know. I just find it very annoying.
Oh yes. So let me get this next one up and running. So a former Tesla short seller at Citron Research is one of 30 firms that were caught in a DOJ probe.
Ooh.
So what happened here is they are in hot water for trying to push Tesla over the edge. Like, it's one thing to think they're going to fail, but it's another thing to actually try and actively make them fail. And so now they're looking in to see if that's what happened. I mean,
of course it is.
And they seized all his computers a year ago, but he's still not charged with anything.
If you take a huge short position in the company and then the company's not failing and now you're losing like an insane amount of money, you're going to try to do whatever you can to try to lose less money. So if you're going to start spreading these FUD campaigns and false information or whatever, or over exaggerate things to attempt to mitigate your losses there, you just shouldn't have been shorting them in the first place.
Like GameStop. Ooh, that ate them alive.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
That was one of my personal favorites last year.
Yeah, that was a big squeeze there.
Peter was making noise, and I know why. I opened something in another tab. So I talked about a Rivian, and well, it ran into a pole at high speed, and one of the news people said it's not imminently clear if this car is going to be salvaged or not. It caught fire. I don't know any cars that catch fire that are not salvaged. Total loss.
I've never ever seen a car catch fire that was total.
Right.
It caught fire in a crash. It's total. Period. Show me one car that has caught fire in a crash and wasn't totaled. Because I've never seen one.
It didn't look like it burned too badly, but I mean,
Yeah,
look
but
at how
still.
much damage is done to the frunk area. That's a total loss. The doors ripped off and peeled back. That was probably the rescue.
Only one headlight still up.
And I'm sure there's a lot of
part
components
of
up there in the front there that got burnt up.
Yeah.
Now it's just sitting here going, I'm okay.
Well, what's interesting to me is it doesn't look like the battery pack itself caught fire because
That's
that's
a good thing.
along the whole floorboard, right? So
Right.
that would have pretty much destroyed the whole vehicle. The
Right.
fact
I thought
that
the
a lot
lights
of
on the
that
truck were on. Those are flares.
the fact that a lot of that vehicle is still intact to me is interesting and says that it the I don't know what exactly caught fire then.
Hey, do we? I think we should send this to Rich.
So he has another, so he buys it and tries to redo it.
He'll be able to do it. Hopefully, he doesn't put a diesel in it.
Ugh. The mad genius that's eccentric as Elon himself.
Indeed. So yeah, so that was a Rivian. It's not immediately clear whether autopilot was engaged or not.
It didn't make news either.
It did make the news. That was the news we were watching.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like widespread because Tesla
Okay,
gets
fair
mentioned.
enough. But I also don't think that their Rivian drive system was on either because I don't think that's been activated yet. All right, so $5 billion in federal funds has been made available to the states for EV charging stations across the U.S. Sorry, Dad, I crashed your Rivian. Potential heart attack after waiting 5 years for one. Absolutely.
I know. How painful is that?
Yes, you gotta get back in line again too. Oh man. So these EV charging funds will help you be able to charge your remaining Rivians across the nation.
So the $5 billion in that the states are getting, I think the state of New Jersey announced that they're getting 15 million.
Nice.
So they're going to start building electric charging stations here, which is nice. It's nice to have more stations. That's all. I mean, there's already Tesla superchargers all over the place, and you got some bunch of other third party networks. But
The Tritium chargers are built there, right?
well, what I'm curious of is if the states are getting the money, right? Now, how are they going to utilize that money? Are the states themselves going to build state-sponsored like charging stations or are they going to just reward money out to third parties who are making charging stations? Like how is this going to play out?
That part. I think that's how Tritium got their money. Is they got the contract from the state to.
And if they do award it,
I mean, I'm my guess is that they're going to award it out to the third party companies to make chargers. And I'm sure one of the stipulations that they're going to put on that is the charging stations have to be non-proprietary, so they can cut Tesla out of the equation,
or force Tesla to give us that CCS adapter,
or force that issue exactly.
Because remember, Illinois is still trying that. Now, I think that there's two ways they could do this. They can give the money to these places as contractors to install them and make them and everything, or they could do a bulk buy. Like New Jersey could be buying the Tritium chargers from Tritium, and then having their own contractors install them rather than having them build them and deploy them. It's kind of cool. You help two companies out. You have one manufacture it, then you have another deploy it and maintain it. Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to see how they do it and see who they contract for.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, we'll probably have 50 different methods that they use there. All right, so after Biden said Tesla, everybody in the cabinet was able to say Tesla, and Buttigieg, I didn't know he drove a Model X based on the fact that the way that he was falling in line with the not saying Tesla. I imagine that he just didn't have one, but he has a Model X.
Well,
Wow.
he was following his marching orders at the time.
Good that he can follow orders, but it was just weird. And so he credits Tesla with helping make EVs possible in America.
I mean, he
Finally,
is the transportation chief, so he knows, hey, it's easier to drive EV
Tesla
than anything
finally
else.
gets some recognition.
They were shaded pretty hard.
Yes,
Like
they were.
as much as Tesla has been, it's you get to a different level when you can get referenced in a show and the characters are like this thing's like a spaceship. Like there's no advertising; it just pops up in shows
Yep.
consistently to where every average person knows it. People still think it's a
And not
hundred
as a
thousand
and not
dollar
as a
level car,
and
and
not as a paid
that's
placement
just
either. These are organic. Like the director drives a
yes,
Tesla, so he put it in there. Or
yes,
the
it's
actor
completely
drives his
organic.
personal Tesla onto the show.
Yeah, so to not even acknowledge Tesla when they're everywhere, literally, like they're in everybody's head with no commercial branding, and to just be like, yeah, GM, and then you have to think about not saying Tesla because you can see him actually pausing and not say it. It's so
Well,
weird,
I'm about to say Tesla when I'm talking about another company.
right? It's really,
So
and then they
Electrify
have to admit,
America may spend some of that $5 billion on Tesla because Electrify America is using Tesla power packs. I don't know how they got power packs when Tesla only sells mega packs. Uh, Tesla power packs are going to be backing the Electrify America stations. More than 100 charging stations are going to be backed by power packs.
I like how
That's
eventually
interesting.
they had to admit Tesla, and then it's like, we need some help with these chips, okay? Just help us. You figured it out. Help us. We'll said your name now. Come on, help us.
Right. Oh, they're
So
out of
it's cool that
Reston.
even
I didn't realize
Americans
they
are
were out of
saying that.
Reston. That explains a lot.
They what?
They're out of Reston. That explains a lot. A friend of mine was coming up to talk to them, and I didn't put two and two together when he said he was coming to Reston. I was like, oh, that's near where I used to work.
Oh,
Yeah.
So whenever
interesting.
that markup went to.
So each site will consist of a 210 kilowatt battery system with roughly 350 kilowatt hours of battery capacity. With a modular design, more capacity can be added over time. So that's several full charges of at least 3.5 charges, full charges of an EV, and most people don't do full charges at these stations. So I'm imagining you probably get 6 sessions out of it before it has to stop. And then if you add more to it, then you can then make it like the Tesla ones, where it's independent of the grid as far as you could go down for a while and still function.
That'd be definitely a good thing.
But they're probably going to use it to shave the peaks off because
Yeah,
that's expensive to get that much electricity in the middle of the day when people are traveling at the variable pricing.
yeah, especially at the peak when it's like summertime and everybody's air conditioner is on full blast.
Exactly.
Yep.
So then we've got Ford has patented portable battery packs for EVs and electronic devices. So what do you think that might mean? Let's take a look.
Portable battery pack.
So in the frunk, you can have these sleds of batteries that have more outlets on them for your Lightning, and I'm guessing that they have to weigh under 100 pounds because anything more than that, you might have an OSHA problem with trying to move your range extending battery packs around, unless they have their own not just wheels but also lift system to get them down and back up again. All right, so then the Ford Authority has what that's the article we're looking at today. Their take is that in October of 2020, Ford filed a patent for a removable range-extending generator that would sit in the bed of a pickup like a toolbox. It contained an engine, fuel tank, exhaust system, and electronics in one package. It would presumably kick in when an EV pickup, such as the Ford F-150 Lightning, is facing a low state of charge in its main pack. Thankfully, that never came to market. And batteries got better and cheaper, so that Ford apparently hasn't developed that, which is good. The new patent is a different way to tackle range anxiety, using a portable battery pack that would reside in the F-150 Lightning or any other EV's frunk, assuming the EV has a frunk. We have seen a lot of them that have minimal to no frunk. But The F-150 has one of the largest frunks. Could be used as secondary packs or a range extender for the EV itself, or utilized as a way to charge other vehicles or electronic devices. According to the patent, a vehicle utilizing these packs could be moved autonomously using follow mode to follow the operator of an electronic device or EV. So you got a pack mule that's running in summon mode that you can use to power another vehicle. Or your gear, in this case. I'm guessing that's a construction site that they're doing there. We can see that the battery packs would essentially extend through the grille of the vehicle, almost like giant battery packs that people already use to charge things like smartphones and laptops. This sort of technology would complement the existing vehicle-to-vehicle charging capability present in the F-150 Boost and the F-150 Lightning, with more portable option that could go a long way to addressing concerns of range anxiety, if it ever comes to fruition. I think that's a big if, because as we've seen with all the existing EV manufacturers, they talk about extending and they never do.
Even it's pretty much a solution looking for a problem. It's
right. Well,
it's people have these fears of it, but it's a perceived. It's just fears that aren't an actual problem that needs to be solved.
Exactly. All right, so we talked about how the Aptera is a good idea for cars that don't have to charge all that much or all that often. Yahoo Finance has got this article from The Independent about a solar-powered car that can drive for months without charging. It's to hit roads this summer. But we're not talking about the Aptera. We're talking about the Lightyear 1, which we haven't seen much of lately, and it's a car, but it's also a golf cart. It's a very, very minimalistic car because you got to get your energy consumption down. It's got like one of the ultimate in aerodynamic shapes. It is solar powered, and it drove 248 miles at 130 kilometers. Okay, so 400 kilometers at 130 kilometers per hour before needing to recharge during tests in the Italian town of Aprilia last month. Previous test count at lower speeds saw the car go more than 600 kilometers. It's not bad. It's got little bicycle tires like the BMW i3, and hey, they're finally making it to market. They've been showing this thing for a long while. Or Tesla could build a supercharger-like system like Tesla's. Yeah, that's a good point too. I think they might. They might. Okay, let's see here. This article came up in groups of ours a couple of times, and this was the headline I liked the best, because all the others made it sound like the National Grid was stealing from you. So, if you live in the UK, the National Grid could pay you to draw power from your electric car, which I thought was a very accurate, non-sensational headline, because that's exactly what they're going to do. If you have an electric car that has V2G capabilities, they will pay you to help them stabilize the grid, and it's the right thing to do. Everybody else framed it as the National Grid was going to steal electricity from your electric car, and oh my goodness, you better think about when you plug it in. Irresponsible headlines. That's why I thought of the others. So that's why I picked this version of it from the Telegraph. And so they're talking about, like Robert was telling us, the gas prices and the power prices are through the roof. So this is one way for them to bring it back in check. And then they have a diagram of how V2G works. Basically, you're putting power both directions into and out of the car. They use the Leaf, which is funny because the Leaf is one of the few cars that actually already is V2G capable from the factory. If you get the right CHAdeMO converter box in the UK or Japan, then you can export power from your Nissan Leaf and power a house, or in this case, if your grid provider allows it, you can help stabilize the grid with it. That's kind of cool. They used the Leaf. All right, so this one I need to open another window. All right, so folks ask why. I was hoping that Marcus would be here for this one, about why Marcus only does sanctioned races and why I stopped racing altogether. Lloyd's of London requested that my insurance provider not renew my racing insurance, and then they gave no reason why. I asked why, and I got no response, because nothing about my situation got worse except that I moved into an apartment versus being in a house. Maybe that freaked him out. I still own the house, so I don't know if they would have seen that. But either way, they didn't pick me up, so I stopped drag racing. and Marcus only does sanctioned races. He doesn't do street racing. Here is a good reason why. This is from the Tesla Plaid channel. He does a lot of racing with his Tesla Plaid. He was previously going with his Raven, and I think even his P100D before that. But so he's up against this truck.
Up next on the Tesla Plaid channel.
Let's just go to this highlight because it's a longer intro than I thought it was. So this truck right here, it was getting air whenever it was doing its burnouts, and like the front wheels were lifting off the ground. And let's see what happens. Here's the link here. So you can watch the whole video. See it picking up right there? Wheels up. Boy's about 3. This guy did the red light, so means he jumped early. Look at that squirreliness. Whoa. Heard that? He hit the Tesla. And you can see some other angles when you watch this video. This is why I don't go to the drag race without insurance. My deductible was $10,000 if something had happened, but that means that I'm only having to come up with 10 grand instead of a whole Model X, because any other insurance company will drop you in a heartbeat, or at the very least just not cover this incident if you're trying to use your street insurance for racing. It's not built for that. Racing is a business, and you need business insurance for that particular business use case, and you need to be careful out there. I mean, just because the cars have the modes means you still need to do your due diligence. Go ahead.
And that's at a drag strip.
Yeah,
this happened at a drag strip.
It could happen on the street. People would die.
So imagine how dangerous this would be on the street.
You hit them at 115 miles an hour.
Yeah, super dangerous.
Right, and you guys wonder why they have all these safety requirements at the drag strip, like helmets and all that stuff. I do agree, like with me and Marcus, we agree that some of that stuff seems to be excessive for a car that's actually stock with that kind of speed. But what they're afraid of is a car like that truck, where somebody built it in their backyard, not being able to handle the speeds it's capable of, and then people getting injured. And sometimes the tracks don't really care, but they have business insurance, so they can keep their business operating, where the insurance company says, hey, if you want this coverage, you need to make sure that your participants have X, Y, and Z complete before you let them on your track, or we drop you. And then now you're out of business.
Right.
So. But everybody walked away because, the Plaid was safe. It wasn't that drastic of a hit for what it could have been, and because,
both vehicles are going in the same direction.
Exactly.
They're both going at speed. So even though one bumps into the other, they're still in the same direction, which helps with as far as damage and how stable the Plaid is.
I was about to say, because it's so heavy that
because
that could have been a pit maneuver.
Going to some crazy spin and flip over and not like that. It's just so stable that it was able to.
Exactly, because if the Plaid was lighter, it would have had a problem. All right, so we already covered the Toyota article. I can skip that. That's another Toyota article that's fun. All right, so let's go into this one. So we talked about Ford dealers being dealers. Kia is not immune to it either. So you can get yourself a fully loaded Model Y, or you can get yourself a base EV6 for $78,875. Which did you pick? Now, I've already said I like the look of the EV6, but I wouldn't pay 80 grand for it. I'm just saying. They've marked it up 18 grand over MSRP.
So that is the problem with the dealership model. That this price gouging that can happen.
I could get a Honda Fit and an EV6 for that price.
Because you're going through a middleman. And the middleman says, oh, there's car shortages or there's supply shortages. Well, instead of selling 15 cars, I'm only going to be able to sell 3. Well, now I need to make the same amount of profit or more off of these 3 that I would have made off of those 15. So let me just go ahead and mark that up. Supply and demand. People will pay it if they want it bad enough. Let's just go ahead and mark that up 18 grand.
And then nobody buys it.
Right. And so somebody suggested that, maybe they added stuff that people don't want to the car. Yeah, they did. They added $3,000 of $2,495 of Pro Pack, and $3,995 of interior protection, and $12,500 of pure profit.
Interior protection? What is that exactly?
I don't know what
did
it is
they
for
exactly
$4,000.
add for $4,000?
It sounds like Scotchgard.
And it's going to stay there for
It doesn't.
$4,000.
No, it won't. Somebody's going to buy that. There's a sucker everywhere.
Somebody will buy that.
I've heard
Because
people
the
buying the
car's
Hyundai
not
Palisade.
widely enough available. The availability isn't there to the point that somebody will buy it. They'll want it bad enough and they'll buy it.
Right. I've heard of people buying the Hyundai Palisade for $85,000. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And yeah.
Well, you know, the other piece that yes, exactly. So that's the other piece. Car dealerships, they're looking at their bread and butter is their service department. Electric vehicles, they're not going to make as much on service. So let's make all the money on the sale of the car.
Front,
it's terrible.
Yeah. But you know, as we saw with our list of how people are handling OTAs and other service updates, they need to come into you to get their software update, and you can tell them they need a tire alignment when they're in there. Hopefully, you're not lying to them about it. But if they really do, then there's a chance to upsell them. But you need to be willing to have less service upsells, as well as you need to staff appropriately for it. You need the right tools for it. So in some cases, you actually need to buy new tools, which is more expensive, which is why so many of the Mini dealers dropped out when Mini went electric, because they didn't want to buy the tools. And they didn't want the lower service income. But that's another option. If you can't handle it, just leave. Just take a graceful exit, take your money, and run. Don't be a jerk like this. I know it's easier said than done.
I would never buy it. I would never pay an extra, $18,000 for no reason.
Right. So Toyota, I talked about Toyota EVs. Here's another Toyota EV. A Lexus enthusiast is talking about the Lexus electrified sports car supercar in detail. Okay, you're not from Lexus, that's fine. So this thing looks pretty. Not at all practical, but it looks pretty. If that wasn't enough, there's also a video.
Sexy.
Yeah, it's very attractive. There's a video of it alongside the LFA. The LFA was a nice looking car too. Let's mute that. Little rolling shot, okay. It's got hood clips built in. Interesting. That rear diffuser looks all right. Oh, there's the LFA, okay. There's the new one. Oh, come on, there you go. This is an Instagram format.
It is a looker.
That's it is, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if you gave me one, I'd keep it. Knowing it's electric, yeah. And then here, just like Toyota has got 30 cars coming up, so Lexus has got a bunch of new electric cars coming up as well.
Well, I mean, Toyota, Lexus, same company.
They're the same company. Lexus electrified. Dan, you need to wear headphones.
Oh, can you hear that?
Yes. All right, so Nikola Motors loses their whole supply chain leadership and put hiring on freeze as the situation is looking dire. Wow. This is not an investment show, but man, I hope that if you were in Nikola, you were in for the long haul, because it's not looking good. I saw this coming with the hydrogen stuff and never put any money into it. Oh, look at this. For those who aren't familiar, that's a U.S. currency in the back there.
Money just blown in the wind there.
Right. All right, so they have a hiring freeze in place. They lost the entire supply chain leadership over the last few months. That situation is starting to look dire. So people are jumping ship.
Yeah, things aren't looking good for them.
No. Nikola has said supply chain department is intact, and Nikola continues to hire. Who believes Nikola now? I mean, they've been caught lying several times. The supply chain department has been intentionally strengthened with new and existing leadership. They're focusing efforts on getting the BEVs and FCEVs. Nobody's buying your fuel cells to market, and continues to strategically for critical roles. 1,000 new employees, 220 new hires.
Fail.
Right. Update 2. We had a discussion with a spokesperson who tried to argue against the situation being dire at the company, but our point about the supply chain department, they couldn't point to a single new hire in the supply chain department, and reiterated they have promoted internally. Like I said, who wants to believe them at this point? They've seen their valuation. Yeah, that was the other part. Some of our friends do have money invested in the company, and they lost a lot of money this week. All right, so Electrek's take is I think we might be seeing the end for Nikola here. I think that's a possibility. I'm not going to call it now, but that's a possibility. During these controversies, it took away from Nikola's actual operations trying to bring EVs and fuel cells to market. They moved away from developing their core technology, rely on suppliers, and now the supply chain leadership is gone. This could be the last straw for them. If not much actual useful product and technology comes out of the venture at the end, at least I hope they can recover money from those who maliciously benefited from the venture. Talking about the old CEO here who took money out of the company and spent it on himself, basically. Yeah. All right, so Breakneck Trent mentions electric car equals service profit loss, dealer model broken. Yeah, we talked about that. And then David points out Nikola, never an original idea, and a huckster showman. Goodbye, Nikola. Yeah, I was trying to be nice about it, but you're right. I have no good feelings about them. I think literally it's a possibility. Like it's a non-zero chance that they survive, but at the same time, I don't think it's likely that they are doing anything good or that they survive. Recently, we talked about a SpaceX upper stage that may have impacted the moon. Turns out it's not a SpaceX upper stage at all. It's Chang'e's 5-T1 LM3C third stage. So it's their Moonlanders booster, not SpaceX had nothing to do with this.
So again, they're just blaming Elon company.
That's what a lot of the comments were about. Like, hey, people who are criticizing Musk for littering space are going to disappear like Homer Simpson disappears into the hedge. And this one says, but you can't take back clicks. And, that was funny. Somebody else pointed out that kind of funny how everyone was calling SpaceX irresponsible for this, not going to lie. It's kind of funny how, anyway, considering we've intentionally done this multiple times to study the effects. This is another point, is we've crashed so much stuff into the moon already. So this guy says China's the only country with active hardware on the moon, yes. And this guy says retroreflectors. And this guy says mirrors aren't operational hardware. But somebody, there we go. So where is the SpaceX second stage now? Actually, this guy said space. Space! According to Jonathan McDowell, an astronomer who tracks space objects and one of the people who initially posted the news, it's likely that the second stage got perturbed into solar orbit. So that means that it got kicked out into a solar orbit instead of orbiting the Earth or the moon. The moon either perturbs an orbit such that it crashes into the moon, or it ejects it into solar orbit, which is what that astronomer thinks happened to the SpaceX one.
If it disappears, it's going to go into time like that gravity well from Star Trek. They just slingshot around the sun and comes in a different time.
Although we did have a touchdown for an Apollo stage. That was interesting. When they're going to hit, and can they watch it on the telescope? The answer is no. It's on the dark side of the moon, and it's going to be on March 4th at 12:25 UTC. But somebody here was explaining how long ago it was. Here we go. This should have never been a story in the first place, let alone with impossible information. It was misidentified back in 2015. Here's an example of anti-SpaceX, anti-Elon media using botnets out there. Everyone saw the SpaceX will crash, litter into the moon story, and literally everyone remembers their comments on these media posts. Now the information has changed to China. Keep an eye out for what the media does. Nothing. It's going to disappear. Like he said, Homer into the bush. They got their views and clicks out of it already. That will see any headline reporting on the update. And this is something that that me and my group actually take the time to. When we learn an update, like we told you about the SpaceX story, but now we're giving you an update. But a lot of places can't be bothered with the update. There used to be a law in Canada It said corrections and retractions need to be as prominently featured in the as the newspaper and show, etc., as the original. Incorrect publication. It meant that if you misreported something on your front page headline, the correction also needed to be. Wow, that's strong. I like that.
That should be a law. That should be.
I hope that's
rocket that was we thought was the SpaceX rocket is now China rocket.
Right.
That should definitely be it. Because this is another case where it was like, oh, this is Elon. Let's smear campaign. He does a lot of irresponsible things. Let's not get it wrong. But it's not the process of just slamming everything. I am one of the key proponents of criticizing when he's wrong, but also give him credit where he's due. I tell people he threw the last Jared Isaac of Inspiration 4 when they did that $200 million fundraiser. They were about to be 50 million short, and then the last second he was just like, here's Elon just threw 50 million at it, and it was he did a great thing, and people are missing those little great moments, and it's weird.
I like that, David. I thought SpaceX would be the first to the moon, admittedly uncontrolled fashion.
Dang it, China beat me.
Indeed, twice, because they dropped the lander.
And Elon's not going to take that.
I will not be number 2. I refuse to be number 2. Number 2.
Be number 2. I will be number 1 and then take over the moon.
Yeah, so we've got this next one is from Teslarati. The Tesla Model Y is quickly gaining ground, finally quickly in California's general auto market. I think that it was pointed out that they matched the what did they match? Or nearly matched the Toyota Camry in California. The numbers from the California New Car Dealers Association report show that Musk is perhaps onto something. According to CNDCDA's report, the Model Y became the state's second best-selling car in 2021, with just about 1,200 units behind the Toyota Camry. Yep, right there. And it costs about the same as a Camry, too.
And California is the largest auto market in the U.S.
Exactly.
So, just what did that first sentence says? The numbers from the California New Car Dealerships Association show that Musk is perhaps onto something. No, really?
Perhaps.
Maybe just might be onto something there.
Exactly.
Like really?
You don't say.
Maybe he's onto something.
So here's a chart.
As if the California Camry is not everywhere.
Right, it is the California Camry. Upvote, and then let's see what this other thing is. Let's copy the link since it's just one link. Copy, paste in here so you guys can see it. What do we got? Tesla Model Y is taking over the Golden State. This lady reports. Does she have a pronounceable name if I hover? Or him, Phil LeBeau.
Phil LeBeau. Okay.
Sorry, I assumed it was her because she was the first one on the screen.
We'll bring it to you, Phil LeBeau.
Yeah. Of course, it's the absolute best value vehicle for your money. Check out where it's going to be produced in mass volume this spring. Austin is just incredible.
Look how humongous that factory is. I mean, when you look at it compared to like that semi truck right there carrying whatever it's carrying, look how tiny that truck. Look how
it's close too. The truck is closer to us than the factory.
Humongous.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where you gotta be like, where's so and so at? The other side of the plant. Okay, it's gonna take my hour to get over here. It's easier to call.
No, he's gonna have to drive to the other side.
Yeah, drive to the other side. Yeah, ride a bicycle.
We're gonna send an email.
Right. So here's a truck next to the factory.
Like a mile and a half hike.
Look at that truck next to the factory. Right? It's a little red speck.
That factory is literally like 2 miles long.
I think it's a mile, but yeah, still, either way, it's
it's
big deal.
Crazy huge.
And then
still
Chad
one building to be that long.
Okay. Right. Chad brings up a good point. He says, foreshadowed by Musk himself. Elon Musk, expect Tesla Model Y to be the best-selling car, SUV, or truck in the world in 2022 or 2023. Oh, wait, if he does it this year.
2021.
If he does it this year, wow.
I mean, it has the potential to be, because think about it. If he can mass produce them out of Texas
and Berlin
at a higher rate than he's already mass producing them
with no panel gaps.
Just because of the fact that just because of the sheer size of that factory, right? And then they can mass produce them out of Berlin as well.
Yep, and China.
And China. They definitely have the potential.
Now that the load is off of Fremont, Fremont can go up another 100,000 cars.
Not to mention, he's already solved the supply chain issue somehow. So he can be able to ship almost everything across the world.
Well, that's the thing. He doesn't have to ship them as far because when you have a factory opening up in Germany and you have the factory in
China.
Texas is serving the eastern half of the United States.
Yep.
Fremont's going to serve the western half of the United States. You got
Texas.
You got
because you can't sell it in Texas.
Yes, and then you got Germany is servicing all of Europe and then you got China servicing
Asia.
I mean, it's
and Oz.
Yep. The fact that you don't have to ship stuff as far is, I mean,
it's amazing.
That's huge. Opening up those two factories in those strategic locations is a game changer.
And correct me if I'm wrong. All of the Teslas being out of Texas got to be shipped outside Texas to get sold. Correct?
Yes.
Or they got to leave Texas and come back if you want to ship them.
Either way, yes, they have to leave.
They got to be shipped to Texas. Oh yeah, so everybody's gonna be like, "Hey, can I ship your Tesla out to buy it somewhere else?" There's more jobs, so those guys are gonna leave the ports and be like, "Hey, throw a couple of these on and ship them out to the showroom out here to get it."
Right. And so David has a good point. Austin now has the lessons of several major plants using Tesla's continual improvement. Should be awesome. Exactly.
Exactly.
So then, rather than having to parse that article, Save the Planet here has helped us visualize what's going on. 2021 California sales. Toyota Camry, 61,599. Tesla Model Y, 60,394. It is so close. It's in spitting distance. And then you've got this. They beat the Civic, 59,818. They beat the RAV4, 59,153. And they beat the Model 3, as Elon promised they would do. They beat the Model 3 at 53,572. And then imagine if you combine these two. Because they're essentially the same car. The Camry and the RAV4 are different platforms. But if that had been the Honda CR-V and the Civic, you could combine them. That's incredible.
Two out of the 5 cars on the top 5 list are Teslas.
Yeah. In Connecticut, where the dealer lobby fights kicking and screaming to prevent direct sales, the Model Y is running a strong second to the Model 3 as the most popular EV on our roads. So there, it's catching in Connecticut. 2278 versus 4268 in the Model S.
Oh, it'll surpass it. That's going to be easily surpassed.
Yeah. They got it. And then somebody else with the same article. That's really good stuff.
Yeah, articles.
And what's crazy is the Model Y is their most profitable vehicle right now. So
right.
The fact that it's also not only the most profitable, but also the most popular is huge kudos to them.
Right. And they only promised us it'd be the most popular. They didn't promise us profit. And they got that too, which was really cool if you're a shareholder. Yeah. So
yeah, because it costs probably about the same amount to make a Y as it does to make a 3, but yet the Y costs more money. So
right. Well, maybe less now because remember that the Y you're going structural pack, you're going dual casting.
And, with the new production of them, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I could see them being, with the 4680s being, more cost effective.
But even current production, remember the Model Y's got the full rear cast, whereas the Model 3 doesn't have a full rear cast yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So those efficiencies. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been pretty bad about keeping up on Twitter, but what I want you guys to do is, those of you that watched the big game, tag me on Twitter at GCustom. I'll put it in the chat with your favorite ads from the show, and please make them environment or EV related or just really funny. And then we'll, the ones that are appropriate, we will share them here on the show. But I'll watch the rest of them and have a good laugh. So, like I said, on Twitter, tag at GCustom, or if you've got me on one of the other platforms, hit me up there, and I'll save what I can, and we'll have it on next week's show. And with that, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Prepare to laugh.
Waiting for upload to finish.
What's going on?
Can I push the button yet? Make it go away. There we go. Like, how long does it take to upload